on the amendment to P167 brought by the Future Hospital Review Panel. Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment? Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I'll start by saying that despite what the Health Minister said in his speech before lunch, I doubt there's even a single member of the Assembly who disputes the need for a new hospital with modern facilities, equipment and highly qualified staff to provide the people of this island with the best possible healthcare during the rest of this century. His passionate appeal is registered and supported by us all. However, when the shortlist of 5 sites was announced, I was convinced that Overdale would be chosen by the states for the hospital. Why? Because it was the best of it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think someone has left their microphone on, and there's talking in the background. Everyone could check their microphone is switched off. Please continue, Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. When the shortlist of 5 sites was announced, I was convinced that Overdale would be chosen by the states for the hospital. Why? Because it was the best of a bad bunch. I personally would have preferred the waterfront or Warwick Farm. The 3 parks, Milton Park, St Andrews Park and the People's Park, were unacceptable, and I knew that they'd be fought over by the parish constable, deputies and local residents who wanted to preserve the green sites and the amenities. In fact, as soon as I saw the shortlist, as soon as the shortlist was announced, Constable Mesburian from St Lawrence immediately put in a proposition to save Millbrook Park, and the St Helier Constable, deputies and residents were geared up for a repeat of the fight to stop it being built on the People's Park, and St Andrews Park was also considered too small and unacceptable. The site at Five Oaks was also a non-starter due to the large number of properties that would have to be purchased, the major roadworks that would be required for the Five Oaks roundabout, and most importantly of all, the volume of traffic and obstructions on the 2 main roads leading from the roundabout to St Helier, which were adjacent to many of the island schools. I could imagine the fight that would be put up by the Constable of St Saviour and her deputies, and no one wants to cross the Constable of St Saviour. That left Overdale as being the site of an existing hospital as the obvious favourite, and I felt that the states were being deliberately steered in its direction. Now, when the decision to select Overdale was announced, it was not a surprise, and it was inevitable in my opinion. Obviously, some of the residents nearest to the Overdale site were unhappy at the prospect, especially when it was known that 3 very modern and expensive houses with a view over St Helier would be demolished, and other land taken for roadworks and for car parking, and a parish assembly was called to discuss the site. I remember addressing the assembly, and I said I'm sure that Overdale would be selected as the site because I said earlier it was the best of a bad bunch. I also knew that the constables of St Saviour and St Lawrence and their deputies would vote for it to stop it being built in their parishes, and the rest of the states would support it as well, as we all wanted a hospital to be built as soon as possible and not waste another £47 million, following the foolish and stupid decision to build it on the existing general hospital site in St Helier. And besides that, the public were all clamouring for a decision to be made. I remember that at that parish assembly, Advocate Blakeney publicly asking the district deputies at that meeting whether we felt that we had enough information about what was being proposed to make a decision. And I remember saying that I didn't, despite reams of documents supplied, and I believe my colleagues felt the same. When the state's debate came and Overdale went through without debate, some members were playing chicken, not wanting to be the first to speak or wanting to follow someone else, or in my case, a mistimed comfort break. I was convinced the debate would go on for hours, and you can imagine my surprise when I got back to my computer and the voting was underway. As I still had so many unanswered questions, I just had time to vote contra alongside 5 other members. We then went on to the Constable Hellier's proposition regarding requiring the government to look at some alternatives to the Westmount Road access. In that debate, I said it would be a Pyrrhic victory. The People's Park was being saved by the hospital being located at Overdale, but the project could end up destroying both areas. I stated that I'm fully committed to having a hospital, but do want to see what impact it's going to have on all the parties concerned and find the best solution. I did not want to see the People's Park destroyed, which could be the result. I said that we had no real information from the Minister. We're talking about properties being demolished, which again, if we can avoid doing so much the better. Although I accept that with any building project, there will always be collateral damage to properties nearby. Sir, can I just ask, are you hearing this properly? I'm getting a lot of feedback.
I can hear you entirely clearly, yes, Deputy. I'm not sure how everyone else is faring, but I can hear.
We can hear him in St Saviour's, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so I'll just repeat what I was just saying. We had no real information from the Minister. We were talking about properties being demolished. And again, if we can avoid some of that, so much the better. Although I accept that with any building project, there would always be collateral damage to properties nearby. But this whole project had been rushed and there was still so much detail outstanding. And that we required more information and we were being rushed into it. I felt it was wrong and I said I would not support this if it means we have to push things through without having the information. And when we came to the votes on compulsory purchase, I said I would support it. Being a Democrat, I accepted the vote of the Assembly on Overdale, but I said I believe we will rue the day in terms of the damage or desecration that will happen to the People's Park and the surrounding area of the approach roads. I think because it was never really set out properly, we will rue the day. Anyway, I supported the compulsory purchase vote. Now, since that time, I've attended a number of briefings that were given by the Assistant Chief Minister and officers. I also had discussions with Senator Le Fondre, and I spent a lot of time trying to get additional information about what was happening. And I must confess, near the end, they'd convinced me. However, I took a lap or two around the People's Park and started looking to see what the impact would be and see if it fitted with what I was being told. I was told that very few trees would be removed, but where the cars parked, a lot of trees will be removed. I think it's about a dozen. And as you go up Westmount Road, there are others that will be dealt with, especially as you get to the corner near the new flats in the old St Helier Quarry, and then going up around the road. So many trees will be lost. And I'm not exactly sure of the actual damage that will be done. So that is one aspect that concerns me. The other aspect of this project that concerns me is the loss of parking. And now I know that we're all looking to a carbon-free future, less cars on the road and more sustainable transport. But this is the situation at the moment. There are over 60 odd car parking spaces that are going to be lost through this development. And yes, I was told, oh, when the new hospital is built, the residents will be able to park in Patriotic Street and certain floors will be dedicated to them. Something, by the way, I don't believe the Infrastructure Minister has agreed to yet. But what are these people going to do in the meantime? I live in a property on St Albans Road, which doesn't have parking. And I know the difficulty I face every day. What difficulty are all the residents of that area also going to experience for the next 5 years or more while the hospital is being built and Patriotic Street can be provided? Now, I've looked even at the Constable's amendment to the main proposition. And in one sense, it's take us on trust. We will discuss replacing the bowling green. Well, yes, I'm sure they will. We will provide car parking, but where and when? We will replace the trees. Yes, trees can be replaced, but there'll be a shadow of the former self and take many, many years to be rebuilt. My biggest criticism of the whole hospital scheme has been the lack of information, which just before the lunch break, we got another example of it. The Treasury Minister telling us that it was going to cost us £3.5 million a month for each delay that would be caused if there were any delays. And yet, when I asked about liquidated damages and penalty clauses, she couldn't give me any information at all. In building contracts, the contractor normally will put in liquidated damages, which are a genuine pre-estimate of what the cost will be if the project is delayed. And they will be seeking those damages from the person who is commissioning the works. Penalty clauses, on the other hand, are just wild-eyed figures thrown in to try and frighten the client. And in law, most of them have been overruled because it's got to be a genuine pre-estimate. But we have none of that information. When I drove around and walked around the park, looking at the trees, I think some of the objectors have put ribbons and tape around more trees that I think will be lost. But the truth of the matter is, we don't really know. I asked in the various briefings that we had, would they stake out the ground and show us how much of the park would be taken away? Could they give us sketch diagrams showing it? Not detailed drawings, not expensive drawings, not anything that would take a great deal of time, but no, they couldn't do that. So basically, states members are going to go into this vote with their head in the sand and not have a clue what they're actually voting for. Now, as one member who's not prepared to do that, I shall be voting for the amendment of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, because I believe that we do require the information. We should have that information before we make a decision. And I believe we would be negligent if we did not. The public pay us to, yes, make decisions, but also to make decisions based on fact and data, not just assurances that everything will be all right on the night. So therefore, sir, I'll finish at this point and say I will be supporting the amendment. And I just wanted to express my real concern about the way that we are proceeding with the whole venture. And I just hope when we get to the design phase and everything else, we get a lot more, because it's sadly lacking. And it's, I would say, a failure of the government to provide not only members what they require, but what the public desires. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy. Deputy Pinnell asks if you'll give way for a point of clarification.
Yes, sir, happy to.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy in his speech just now said that I couldn't give information on the breakdown of the projected estimate of £100,000 a day and a consequent 3.4 million increase in costs of a delay. I didn't say that, sir. I said I would furnish the Deputy with a breakdown at the end of the proceedings or during the afternoon. It's not that I couldn't do it, it's just that it was very, very complicated to go into an answer to his question. Thank you, sir. So
I accept the Minister's statement. She did say she would provide it, but we need the information before we make a decision. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy Santagorst.
Thank you, sir. Like some other members, I'm sorry that we find ourselves here today. I am not of the view that a specially requisitioned meeting was required to consider this matter. In fact, I think probably it's going to be something that PPC need to pick up on, because no sooner have we moved to the 3-week cycle than we are requiring a requisitioned meeting in between, and we might even require a second requisition meeting if Deputy Tadea goes along with his proposal. And therefore, sir, I think it's unfortunate, because I think that requisitioned element of this meeting has led to difficulties for members which didn't need to be, and equally for members of the public. And so I can therefore understand why some are feeling today that the government perhaps deserves to lose this amendment. But sir, I think there have been a lot of good speeches during this debate, and I want to pick some of those up. But before I do as well, sir, I just want to comment on one particular speech, and I hope that the speaker will reconsider the comments that were made about a former member of this assembly and a letter to the JEP. I've got no doubt that former member can fully, amply and ably defend themselves through the letters page of the JEP, sir, but I think it's unbecoming of members of this assembly to criticise former members in the public way that was undertaken without their right to reply. And so I disassociate myself from that. One of the disappointments for me and during this debate, sir, has been something that we've got used to in politics, and that is the overstatement. Because most of the decisions that we are called to consider are nuanced, often technical, and often quite detailed. And so we find ourselves in that difficulty today. Because the number of sites that were looked at, or the number of potential access routes that were looked at, are indeed quite technical, and some of them are quite difficult. But what the political oversight group is asking members to decide today is not quite as nuanced or not quite as technical as some of the correspondence we've had over the course of the last number of days have perhaps led us to believe. And I come back to the Constable of St John. And I don't agree with the previous speaker that putting a hospital on the current site or at the side of the current site was wrong. Could have had a perfectly good hospital, different to the hospital that's now being proposed at Overdale, because it didn't have mental health facilities. But there could have been a perfectly good hospital there. It fell down very much at the planning stage. And let's be clear, the decision to site the new hospital at Overdale still has to go through that detailed planning process. We have not seen the detailed design, and so it is important that we keep moving forward, because those hurdles have still to be got over. But for my part, sir, when it was this current assembly, let's be clear, it was this current assembly that voted to jettison those £26 million previously spent to deliver a hospital on the Gloucester Street site. So let's not blame others. That was our decision. But when it became apparent that actually Overdale was the preferred site, and we know, don't we, that the former Assistant Chief Minister was very clear during the election and post the election, as were other states members, that Overdale was their preferred site. And Overdale can deliver a hospital. I'm slightly nervous about using the term world-class hospital, sir, because we need a hospital that is going to be suitable for Jersey, suitable for our needs, and suitable for our health desires. But nonetheless, the remit is to build a world-class hospital, and that can be delivered at Overdale. But we've known all along, sir, that the difficulty of the Overdale site is being one of access. And as the Constable of St John said, you can practically, in reality, there's probably two ways that you can access Overdale satisfactorily. And one is through the cottage homes. Like him, I thought that that was probably the best approach. but equally, of course, you can approach it through Westmount Road and up Westmount. And so what's actually before the Assembly, as Senator Valois clearly reminded us in asking for your opinion from the chair, sir, is the principle of using that road, that it will be two-way and that there will be a need for other modes of transport, i.e. cycling and walking. But let's bear in mind what the Constable of St Helier pointed us to, sir. Right across Europe, by 2030, there'll be no new combustion engine cars being built. Personally, that's a disappointment to me, but I understand entirely why that is being done. And therefore, we need to think about all of these developments in light of the carbon neutral strategy as well that we will be delivering. And so, sir, I did get confused over the course of last week when, looking at the drawings that have been provided, it was clear to me that some trees would need to be taken down. Then we had other comments that said no trees would be taken down, or there was no intention to take trees down. Then we had the scrutiny report, and I thank scrutiny very much for their report, that reminded us that actually the option, I think it was number 6, of not really changing the road might deliver what was required. Because it's become apparent to me, sir, during the course of this debate, that no one wants a road which is 12 metres wide. That's been referred to as the motorway to the hospital. Nobody wants that, and I don't think any member of this Assembly would vote for that. But we heard from a member of the political oversight group that reminded us that the current road is 6 metres and what's being proposed is 7. But I just want to take members right back to something that Senator Farnham, I think, said in his opening speech, and that was that he would be prepared to look again at that option. And so when I first read Scrutiny's amendment, I felt that I could support it because we clearly don't have the detailed drawings in front of us. Those drawings are going to be undertaken at the next stage. Could the planning TTS services, could they do something on an ad hoc basis? I've got no doubt that they could. But reading further into what the scrutiny report says, it's clear to me that actually what's being asked for is going to take slightly longer than what I'd initially thought was the case when they suggested the state sitting of the 2nd of March. The work that would be required to be undertaken would take longer than is being suggested by scrutiny. But this is the reason I come back to overstatement, sir, because if there were to be a short delay, would it kill off the hospital? Would it be the end of the contractor walking away? Well, sir, perhaps I'm getting long in the teeth, but you and I have heard that before in debates like this, and I don't believe that it would result in this couple of years extension. I don't believe that if the contractor has been properly briefed on parliamentary process in Jersey, that they would walk away. But nor, sir, do I believe now that this information could be provided in the 4-week window. And I think on balance, looking at the information that's being requested, there would be a delay. And one of the reasons that a delay is difficult is around, do we want to get this site over the line before the election? I mean, there are no certainties, let's be clear of that, because we've had sites approved in the Assembly before, and then an incoming Assembly has overturned them. So there is no certainty in that regard. But do we want 2, 3, 4 months delay? Then absolutely we don't. Can the information be provided in the course of 4 weeks? With hand on my heart, sir, I'm not sure that it can. And so, sir, I want to make a request of the Political Oversight Group and the Deputy Chief Minister, and I think they acknowledge this, that all of the correspondence I've had from members of the public over the course of the last week, and I will just say one thing for those, sir, when we were proposing to put the hospital on Gloucester Street, we had some people writing to us saying, no, it should be either at Overdale or at St Saviour's. And now those very same people are writing again saying it shouldn't be at Overdale, it should be somewhere else. So we just need to bear that in mind. But all of those correspondents have talked about not wanting the motorway at Westmount Road. They want the Political Oversight Group and ministers to listen to that concern. And I believe, sir, that in the terms of the proposition before members, there is the flexibility for the Political Oversight Group to have the decision that the access route or the main access route is going to be up Westmount Road. And I think that if we say it's not, then we have to go back to the cottage homes. And therefore, sir, I think for me, it is practical, pragmatic and reasonable to say that it should be on Westmount Road. And all of the issues, all of the challenge then comes down to the next stage of the work that's being undertaken. And that is how many trees are going to be taken down, sir, because from the drawings that I've seen that are all in the public domain, I've seen no more than anybody else. Clear to me, sir, I drive past there every day on the school run, that there are some trees right on the roadside between the current road and the parking spaces. They will need to go. It's also clear to me, sir, that there are good parts of Westmount Road which are reasonably wide for a Jersey road, sir. We don't need them wider at all. We glory in wide roads like that. So they need to, seems to me, to have very little work done on them. And therefore, sir, I think it seems perfectly reasonable for the Political Oversight Group to do a further piece of work, lodge a report in light of what the Constable of St Clement, Constable of St Helier has now amended this to do, to provide the detail of what the actual road will look like, how wide it actually needs to be, rather than just, and I don't say this lightly, sir, rather than just some traffic consultants from elsewhere, although, as the Constable of St Helier said, traffic engineers all seem to be out of the same mould, so whether they're living in Jersey or they're living in the UK, they often seem to come to the same point of view. But I think there is a real opportunity for a revisiting of all of those routes which use Westmount Road as the main access point, together with the do nothing option, apart from maybe a little bit of smoothing out here and there. And I think that that, sir, will go a long, long way to helping islanders understand what is and isn't being proposed, because we've got drawn into a quagmire of he said, she said, they said, we said, we've seen this, we've seen the other. Sir, this is, we know that we can't afford as a community to be divided anymore. We have to come together and provide a hospital. And so, sir, on balance, having looked at this amendment and really wanting to support it, because I think it's perfectly legitimate for scrutiny to amend, perfectly legitimate for scrutiny to present their report, and I'm disappointed that they had to be pushed into presenting it early so that they couldn't complete all of the work that they wanted to do. We as an assembly have agreed that Overdale is the new site for the new hospital. So we were told years ago that we could have a new hospital at Overdale for £90 million. We now know that that was absolute nonsense. We have all these sorts of overstatements and comments which divide.
Senator,
yes, sir.
I have to interrupt you. The bell has gone, and I've allowed an extra 30 seconds. So you have.
Oh, I do apologise, sir. I didn't hear the bell at my end at all.
Well, we actually accidentally pressed it 30 seconds late anyway, so you've had an additional full minute in effect. So, in light of that, I shall complete my speech there. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to raise a couple of questions. Well, one point I would like to pick up is Senator Gore's absolutely right to point out that this 3 weekly sitting hasn't got off to the greatest of starts. But focusing on the hospital access road and the scrutiny amendment, one of the things that has struck me so far with regard to this hospital in the small amounts of plans that we've seen to date is that it appears to be being built around the car. And given the Assembly's decision to declare a climate emergency, and given the apparent focus on a sustainable transport policy, I've yet to see any information with regard to how this hospital, both in the build of the hospital, which itself will create masses of carbon emissions, but also the ongoing running of the hospital in terms of the traffic and transport to it. I've yet to see any element of understanding of how that is going to impact Jersey's decision to declare a climate emergency. So far, in my view, this hospital has not taken any element of that into account. So I was wondering if, in her summing up, if Senator Moore might be able to guide me in an understanding of whether the report that she seeks would cover the kind of carbon footprint of this access road, both in terms of its construction, but also in terms of the traffic that it will then carry. I do note that Part 5 asks for a report on the impact on the surrounding ecology and environment. So certainly that could be seen to cover off the carbon footprint element and the sustainable transport element. But I was wondering if Senator Moore would be able to elucidate the Assembly further on that point, because it's a huge disappointment to me that so far I've had nothing from the government side, from the project team side on this, as to how they are going to deal with building a hospital on a hill whilst operating Jersey in an element of carbon neutrality and within the confines of having declared a carbon emergency, a climate emergency, sorry. So any information on that area I'd be most grateful for. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Senator Ferguson. Senator Ferguson?
Yes, I'm here, sir. My mouse goes wandering all over the screen. I can tell you that at the moment, the staff are fed up with the sort of prevarication that's going on. I'm not impressed at the demand for information, which seems to be too early in the project. The advisors have said that the Access 7, the proposed Access 7 is appropriate for access to this site. And then Deputy Morell makes me wonder, how many people go to hospital by foot? Yes, visitors, and they might go on bicycles and things like that. But what about the patients? You know, I wonder how many people actually go to hospital to attend as a patient, walking or on a bike. You might do it for, you know, sort of consultant consultancy meetings, but you know, how many would go walking when you're having a baby? You know, I can't see you going on a walking or what's the other thing? Going on a bike. You usually go by car or ambulance. So I really, you know, I've got a great deal of admiration for both the Scrutiny Hospital team and the government team. But really, we are looking at a degree of detail being demanded, which is not necessarily essential at this point. You know, it demands on our side a considerable degree of engineering expertise, not held within scrutiny or probably POG and so on. So, you know, I think we seem to be getting the, you know, going to it base over apex, and I think perhaps, you know, perhaps we could work together a little more rather than sitting taking pot shots. So I think we ought to carry on at this stage, because I don't think they've done the work that is needed to give the information to scrutiny that they want. And so I would like to see the work being done. You know, the people are reporting the fact that they're seeing test drilling on the site. Well, yes, you would expect to have test drilling, and then you would it's not me, sir. Somebody's got a microphone on.
I can hear you clearly without any interruption, Senator. So,
oh, good. But I mean, yes, you would. You do some test drilling, but you obviously wouldn't do a lot at this point until you've actually, you know, got the payments sorted. So I think we should let this one go through, but I think we should be a little more, you know, sort of cooperative and talking to the government rather than just pot-shotting at them all the time. I mean, yes, I'm the only engineer in the States or in the Assembly. And if you come to me when I'm on a project, too soon in the project, wanting all the details, I just tell you to take a hike. So, you know, they're being a bit more polite than I am. But I think we should, at this point, we should let it go. Or at least not so much let it go as, you know, keep an eye on it, keep it under control and under observation and so on, but also under consultation. It's having the consultation that matters. So, but we can only do it from the policy angle, the policy level. We can't do it, you know, checking the engineering expertise level stuff, because we aren't qualified to. So anyway, that I say let support the proposition. No, support the, don't support the amendment. Sorry, getting myself muddled up. Thank you, sir.
thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Tadley.
Thank you, sir. Something that Senator Gore said that sounded slightly strange and that struck me was that he said members might think that the government deserves to lose this amendment. And that's not the way I look at it. I think it probably tells a lot about where he's coming from. I don't think this is about government versus scrutiny. And I would prefer to put it that scrutiny deserves to win the amendment, not because it is adversarial, but because actually what the amendment is proposing is what we would expect under normal circumstances from the scrutiny function, sir. And that is to say that scrutiny quite rightly have looked at this and said, we don't have the relevant detail here. We don't really know what is being proposed. And therefore, sir, just bear with me, sir. Therefore, it's not really suitable for an assembly to vote on something completely blindly. It's also to be remembered, I think, that I thought that Senator Gorst did very well to find a fence somewhere in the middle of a desert. I suppose it's because his government is actually opposing the Scrutinies Amendment. He finds himself in a difficult position as somebody who led a government for 2 terms, not just 1 term, but for 2 terms, and failed to deliver a hospital in that time. So I presume that he doesn't want to be part of a 3rd government which also fails to deliver a hospital, albeit a hospital that is on a site which he doesn't necessarily agree with. What he also said is, which needs some answers from his government, is that he said, sorry, sir?
No, I didn't say anything, Deputy.
Sorry, so I think I'm just getting echoes. So the government of which Senator Gorst is a part seemed to imply that there is some misinformation being given out by his government. First of all, he said that they should stop using arguments which say that, for example, the contractors would walk away if this amendment gets approved today, or if we dally any longer on the building of the hospital, sir. And I would agree that we can't keep on using those kind of arguments, because what it does, it puts a gun to the head of the Assembly and says that actually it's not the democratic process which should dictate what kind of decisions are made and what kind of road and ultimately what kind of hospital we get, but it should be left between a small coterie of ministers and actually a developer to decide what happens. And we can't keep having that gun held to our head saying, oh, that costs are going to go up and that they will walk away if we don't act very swiftly. I think it's also true that whilst it's not the main point of the debate, that the 3-week sittings is very much more likely to cause these kind of requisitions. And the problem with the requisition meetings are that they don't necessarily have the right lodging period, but it also means that they don't allow for a question time to precede the proposition being debated. And a lot of these issues could have come out in question time, sir, and they could have been addressed before we went into debate. Therefore, members would know what facts were on the table, with written answers, with questions to the Attorney General if need be, but questions to other ministers, as well as questions without notice. And these kind of ad hoc sittings don't give the ability for that kind of drilling and public scrutiny in the Assembly to happen, sir. So I think that's another area of disappointment. We were also told about the trees, and I think this is something that needs to be answered, is that why are we told from government that it's the intention not to lose a single tree, when even Senator Gorst, who drives along that way to drop his daughter to school in the morning, knows that certain trees will have to go. So is his government effectively playing fast and loose with the truth? And if they're playing fast and loose with the truth about trees, sir, then what else is it that they might not be telling us or concealing from us and the public, sir? So all these are perfectly valid questions, sir. And I also appreciate that Senator Gorst must find himself in a difficult position because his party whip, sir, is opposing the whole proposition itself, sir. So I know that he's part of government, but we know that his party whip is also against this whole project. So I do have some sympathy for him, sir. And it seems to me that government's approach to this seems to be like that of a magician proposing a particularly cheap card trick, where they say, instead of saying pick a card, any card, they're saying pick a road, any road, and we'll tell you about the nature of the road afterwards, sir. And no doubt there are political games being played in some quarters, and no doubt there are so many reasons why we're having such a high volume of email correspondence around this issue. But it can't all be due to some sore losers who don't want the Overdale site. It can't all be down to the fact that everybody who's writing to us is a NIMBY, sir. And I don't say that lightly, sir, because I don't think they should be dismissed like that. I think the people, of course, people who live in the area will be contacting us perhaps disproportionately more than those who don't. But it also seems to me that we've had emails from throughout the island, including the Société Générale, sorry, sir, which is difficult to dismiss, sir, because it's not from people. They represent people throughout the whole island, and the concerns that are being put forward are nuanced, and they're not from people, from what I've read, that simply oppose the Overdale site. I've heard a lot of people saying, look, we like the Overdale site. It's we know that ideally we might have chosen somewhere else 5 or 10 years ago, but we must get on, we must build the hospital, but the detail needs to be there. And so I don't think it's correct, as I think it was Deputy Wickenden said, that if indeed a fully detailed proposal had come forward, then the opponents would have simply said, actually, this you're presenting us with a fait accompli. I think that's far too hypothetical and not a real argument, because in fact, if you had a detailed plan coming forward from government, you'd know what the problems were, or if there were any problems at all, and then you could amend it and you could say, actually, it looks fine to me, or have you thought about doing this? But currently we're being presented with something which is very vague, and again, the way it's being bulldozed through at the last moment, this particular part, I can't help feeling that psychologically it's because the government feels that this has taken so long, and they've also failed to deliver in a timely manner with so many reviews when they didn't need to, putting options on the table which they knew would never be politically or practically feasible, such as the People's Park and other sites. And they're thinking, oh no, we've dallied for too long now, let's rush this last part through. And that's really dangerous, I think, for members to understandably want to get this hospital project delivered. And so I find myself also in the position where I think Overdale is the right site. I deplore any kind of unnecessary delay to the delivery of the project, but that cannot be at the cost of us making bad decisions and undetailed decisions when we haven't seen the full facts, sir. So I think the scrutiny amendment, just like the Constable's amendment and Deputy Doublet's helpful amendment, are all worthy of a poor vote today, sir. But when we've got those safeguards in place, then let's get behind the Overdale site, sir, because I'm certainly not one of those who sees this as a way to reopen the debate to other potential sites, sir, when the decision on Overdale in principle has been made. It's right that we go ahead with it, but we do need more detail about any potential environmental destruction or whether indeed the road as it's being proposed in its current format is actually the road that we need, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment? No other member wishes to speak. Then Deputy St. Peter.
Sorry, sir, just expressing a few echoes. Are we okay now? So, thank you, sir. We've heard many of the arguments as to why we must get on today and unlock our project team and enable them to commence in earnest on the design and subsequent planning application. We must maintain the momentum of this project. In summary, what I've heard, it is clear there will be financial consequences of delay. The true extent will be based on our ability to stay on track and keep to the risk-reward agreement based on the cost envelope of £550 million. The morale issues with our medical professions. We've all read the impassioned plea from our acting group medical director. Our decaying health estate is no longer fit for purpose and will require significant investment to keep running safely post 2026. This is estimated at 10 million a year, rising exponentially. The retention of our design and delivery partner. Let us not forget the recent UK announcement to build 40 hospitals by 2030. There will be plenty of business opportunities for them. If we lose the ROC FCC joint venture, Jersey's reputation could potentially be damaged, and we may fail to attract another design and build partner of this calibre. the political issues with decisions potentially straddling governments in 16 months' time, the delay in co-locating our mental and physical health facilities, deemed quite rightly by all of us of high importance. The majority of information available today has been in the public domain since the lodging of P123 on the 6th of October 2020. There has been plenty of time to challenge the access at Westmount Road, the preferred access option, which was spelt out quite clearly in that proposition report. All parties agree that option 7 is the most suitable, and according to scrutiny's advisors, option 6 is the second. Both are Westmount Road, so the principle is accepted by everyone. Why not then get on with our robust planning process, which we all know can sometimes be too robust. The planning inspector will forensically analyse the planning submission to ensure all key factors have been examined in detail. This will include safe traffic management and the protection of our cherished environment. This amendment asks us to come back to this Assembly with the design for members' approval. We can only begin to imagine the chaos that we cause by having 49 different opinions designing the road. Let the experts do it, with due consultation with islanders and all interested parties, managed by Soundings, our highly reputable advisors. And I'm amazed by the fact that back in November, we approved the construction of 69,000 square metre building without a single picture, design or drawing attached. And here today, we are debating all day on a metre of road, or a few metres of road, and some, albeit important, trees. Most importantly, there's a collective decision where we should be coming together as an island government to deliver the hospital on the site we have, as an Assembly already agreed. We've all committed to deliver a hospital. Let us now continue to deliver on that joint promise. However, I want us all to recognise and respect the small minority who are making the greatest sacrifice towards building this new hospital for all of our 107,600 islanders. That is those who were one day planning to continue to enjoy the full benefits of their forever homes, who were asked overnight to give them up to ensure appropriate and safe access can be delivered for our hospital. The stress and disruption are awful enough, but having it delayed with ensuing uncertainty is putting excessive and unnecessary additional stress on these families. We must respect those who have accepted their fate in a dignified and professional way, and should be recognising them with our great appreciation of the personal sacrifice they are making. Instead, this amendment will extend their turmoil. For them, if no one else, let's vote out this delaying amendment and get on with delivering the hospital this island so desperately needs. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy Senator Fun.
Thank you, sir. I think Senator Ferguson has encapsulated the whole situation perfectly when she said information is only available when it is produced through various stages of the project. And the project we have followed has been sequenced from day one. It's been sequenced, sir, and a lot of work streams are running parallel with each other, so we can maintain the timeline, sir, and keep to the hospital delivery target. There has been absolutely nothing hidden, sir. Every scrap of information we've put in the public domain or shared with scrutiny. And if people haven't seen it, then we don't have it to show them, sir. And as soon as we do have it, we will show it. We will share it. We can't share it if we don't have it, and that's why it's so important the states make a decision today. And supporting the amendment will delay things, sir. That's not, I mean, we get accused, I've been accused of bullying. I've never bullied anyone in my entire life. I've never, ever requisitioned a state sitting in my 20 years as a states member. But we do have a mechanism in our standing orders for doing that, sir, if we feel that state sitting is warranted, sir. and myself and the oversight group and a number of other states members did feel that way because of the critical timeline, and because I think we all share the same ambition, the same aspiration to deliver a new hospital. So I don't think we should be, you know, I accept the criticism. I accept some members might not have wanted to be called in today to discuss it. So I can accept that and I can take the criticism, but it shouldn't be used against the argument. Other requisitions have been, other sittings have been requisitioned in the past, and I'm sure many more will in the future, unless the Privileges and Procedures Committee want to look at that particular aspect of standing orders. So I'm sorry if it has upset some members, but I certainly hope it won't sway the decision, their decision in this important debate. I just want to talk briefly about the trees, because I have said it is the intention of the project not to lose a single tree. Now that is sort of the intention. It's the intention. It's going to be impossible to deliver the project without having an impact on some of the trees. So, but we're not going to know exactly what that is until we do the design. But I can assure members, I can absolutely assure members that the impact on the trees and the park will be absolutely minimal, sir, compared to what is being claimed. And I was taken out of context by saying that it is our intention not to lose a single tree. On every single occasion, I have gone on to say, but trees that are impacted will be relocated or replaced, sir. And if we have to replace trees, we'll replace them 2, 3, 4 times over, sir, because what it doesn't say, what people don't say, is that whilst we might lose some trees, sir, there will also be a lot of green space created, so if the road is realigned, to plant new trees and commence some really good environmental landscaping and an increase of community facilities, sir. So whilst the report does refer to a tree canopy of 2,355 square metres, okay, that could be affected, sir. Affected does not mean destroyed, and it certainly does not mean lost, sir. Affected means maintenance, landscaping, trimming. It certainly does not mean lost. Nothing like that will be lost, sir. And if by any chance the design came back that had anything more than a very minimal impact on the environment, sir, in fact, would be sent back, I think, by the political oversight group. I can't see anything that will have a severe impact being approved. So I certainly wouldn't approve it, sir, and I'm sure most members wouldn't. But we can't make that call on assumption, sir. People are speculating as to what might happen, and we can't know what's going to happen until we do the design, and we're following a sequence. If we don't have the information, we can't share it. I'll say that again. There is nothing hidden. There are no secret plans. Senator Moore asked me to categorically state that, and I categorically state that. Everything we have available to us has been shared. We want nothing more than to get on with the design, so we can present Islanders with not just schematics and visuals, sir, but proper design work that we can all make a judgment on. And I am sure, sir, that when we do that, many Islanders and many residents will be reassured. So I know we're not going to please all of the residents, because there are some, quite understandably, who are completely opposed to it at any cost. But we will do our very, very best. I just want to sort of move through some of the points that Senator Moore asked me to address, if I can. And the presentation that was made to States members on Friday that has been alluded to, which actually showed the new road would go up and it would go behind the existing tree line, and it was explained that that very same presentation was given to all the media stations later in the day. So all of the information we shared with members is also in the public domain. Well, it could be in the public domain should the media decide to share it, sir. And I think some have shared some of it, some haven't. Some have still preferred to take different angles on the story, sir. But they are in possession of the facts. And again, as Senator Ferguson said, sir, and Senator Moore also asked me to comment on the fact that engineering work and drilling was going on the hill, and if we had the resource to do that, why couldn't we have the resource to do the design work? The engineering work, the groundwork, the drilling, regardless of what we do with the road, even if we do absolutely nothing with the road, that work still has to be done before we can proceed with the project. So regardless of this proposition or anything else, that work had to commence. So that is one of the parallel work streams that is underway, sir. And I just, referring to that situation and the challenge that came with it about why are we not expending the resource and to do the drawings. Well, had we not been in the position, had we not been forced to, but requested by the Assembly, and the Assembly's will is sacred, sir, as we all know, we would not defy it. We didn't want the delay, sir. If the Assembly had not approved that amendment or requested us, this work would probably be 4/5 done by now. It would be almost complete, but it's not so. Instead, sir, it's held the project up while we produced the report and waited for scrutiny to do their work. However, I want to refer to Senator Gore's speech and thank him for his contribution, sir. And I listened very carefully, and I've spoken to Senator Gorst, and Senator Gorst is supportive of the proposition, sir. And to that end, he came up, he found, as Deputy Taddier described it, a fence in the desert. Well, it's not quite that, but it was a good a suggestion, I think, sir. And the political oversight group, sir, I'm sure will have absolutely no problem with, if the states give us the go-ahead today to get on with the detailed work. During the course of that work, in early course, so we can provide an update report for the states. We can lodge an update of that work with as much information we can as soon as possible, sir. In addition to that, I fully undertake to provide, updates, continue to provide regular updates for scrutiny in any states member with all the regular briefings we've done throughout the project, sir. So as new bits of information become available, they will be made available to members and scrutiny, sir, and to the public. So we keep everybody informed as the progress of the progress that we are making. So, and the all of the detail that scrutiny have asked for, and it is not possible with the best will in the world to provide all of that detail by the 2nd of March, sir, is all of that detail and more will be collated and provided, so in the design work that will lead up to the full planning application process. And what we mean by we don't want to spend unnecessary resources, sir, the estimates are that this work, all of the design work and the detailed ancillary work around it to produce everything that we need to get to the planning process and hopefully through it, sir, is easily in excess of £1 million. Now that might not sound like a lot of money in the scheme of things, but it is £1 million of taxpayers' money. And can we afford that at the moment? Well, yes, we probably can, but we're also we have been placed in very different and challenging financial circumstances by the current situation in relation to the pandemic that we are dealing with currently. So we want to make sure that the money we expend on the project remains within the budget, sir. And we don't want to spend it where we don't have to. And again, that's why I'm appealing to members not to support the amendment today, but to support the proposition which will enable us to just get on with that work. If we look at the wording of the report and that of the proposition, so, and that was to basically say, to ask the states to agree that the Westmount Road is our primary, provide the primary access route to the new hospital, so in a two-way road, not a motorway or a super highway, a two-way road, sir. No wider in parts than the current Westmount Road is, but wider in certain parts to ensure there's absolutely no interruption of cars going up and down. And again, I can categorically say that it is the intention of the oversight group to pursue option 7, sir. And as I alluded to in my opening remarks, we commit, sir, to look very closely at option 6, which is to do nothing. So we have two options: we change the road, or we do nothing, or we maybe find an option 6.5 or 6 3/4, which is somewhere between the two, sir. But that is the territory we're looking in, and that is what the design work will be based upon. We're not going to suddenly go delving into many of the other options that were presented in the report, the 69, 70 other options, sir. We're going to focus in that territory. I want to allude briefly to the scrutiny report, sir, the advisors report, sir, which the team are currently going through word by word, page by page. And I think, sir, it is generally a good report. It's critical in parts, but it's also supportive in parts, sir, and it makes 7 recommendations. And I think at this stage, sir, the recommendations look reasonable. I think we can work with most of them, if not all of them, sir, but we will engage fully with scrutiny, sir, to that end. Deputy Higgins raised a point about parking, and I just want to reassure Deputy Higgins and any other members that might be concerned about that, that we have accepted the Constable's amendment, but we undertake to replace any parking that is lost, sir. That is a guarantee, and talks are ongoing to that end, sir. So I can assure members that that will happen. I mean, I just talk briefly about the style of the road. It's not a UK traffic intervention in any way, shape or form. The standards that are needed are from our own highway authority, meeting Jersey's practice, which is safe for all users. It will be completely based around our system, sir, of road and networks. No superhighway, no 4-lane motorways, no dual carriageways, just Jersey standards, Jersey roads, sir. That's what we are going to produce. I think I've covered the point that Senator Valois raised when she quite rightly asked for clarification on what the proposition actually meant. And I hope that the assurance on option 7 and 6 goes some way to reassuring her that this is not, there's no intention to go outside of those parameters, sir. And the design work will look to provide the best and the most safest road access that disturbs the least amount of property and has the least impact on the environment, sir. Right from the roundabouts at the end of St Albans, in a road along the bottom of the park, up the side of the park and on the top of the tree canopy, sir, and then round up to the top. And I say again, although none of us want to see any trees disturbed, sir, there will have to be some trees disturbed, sir, but nothing like the claims that are being made and the strict instructions. And the challenge to the designers is to make sure there are absolute minimal impacts, sir. And I stress again, any environmental impact will be replaced, sir. And I predict we can actually gain more community and recreational space. And that's why I want to get on with this design work, because I know when we start seeing the actual detail that we need, I hope members will not only feel reassured, but actually be supportive of what is being planned, sir. I think it was Deputy Ward that talked about the public transport strategy, and we clearly are going to have to embrace that. And we have in the transport strategy island-wide, so we have to get a move on. And I hope, sir, that because we will have to put a transport strategy in place for the new hospital, I've said it before, sir, and I've discussed it with the constable, I hope that what we do for the hospital, and there were lots of options that we are exploring, including the redevelopment of the hopper bus schemes, the use of electric buses and all sorts of things like that. But I hope what we do there could be an exemplar, sir, and I hope be a catalyst to really kickstart the work that we need to catch up on island-wide transport strategy. So I feel confident that this could help push that along. I want to reiterate, sir, that we have provided every bit of information that we have at our disposal, and we continue to do that, sir. Political oversight groups will provide an update by way of a report to the Assembly as we progress through the design stages, sir. And we will continue to work as closely as we possibly can with our scrutiny panel, sir, at every step of the way. And we might not agree, but there's nothing wrong with not agreeing in politics. We all come with very different views and opinions, very different aspirations, and we have to debate and we have to challenge. I don't criticise scrutiny in any way, shape or form, sir, but the importance of the timeline for the project, sir, was deemed that important that even a week, even 8 days, sir, could make an important difference to ensure we stick to our timeline, sir. And I'll be under no doubt, sir. And this is not an attempt. Whenever we say things, we often get accused of scaremongering, and this is just a fact, sir, that if we accept the amendment, we will see a delay to the project. And that delay, sir, will mean that our clinicians and our frontline health staff and our doctors and nurses will have to stay in Gloucester Street for at least 2027 and probably into 2028. So that is not a threat or an attempt, sir, to sway members. This is just a statement of the facts. So if we miss the timeline, we will get on and build a hospital. Of course we will, but not have it fully operational by the end of 2026, which is the only thing that is driving the urgency on the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I will wear several hats in the Assembly, sir. In simple terms, the issues for this Assembly and myself are twofold. Firstly, we have, as an Assembly, agreed that Overdale is to be the site of the new hospital. We should therefore do all in our power to deliver this to the people of Jersey. Further delays are simply unacceptable. Secondly, the hospital needs to work operationally. Therefore, it needs highways infrastructure to ensure that staff, patients, visitors, emergency vehicles and service vehicles can access the site at all hours in a safe and appropriate manner. So the proposals from the hospital planning team will do this. The amendment put forward by the hospital review panel is well intentioned. However, the information being asked for is not a matter for the State's Assembly, and it's not a matter to be prepared and debated at this stage. If members agree to this amendment, then it will usurp the proper planning process, which is still ongoing. The State's Assembly as well know that it's not a planning authority, but it's also a highways authority. As Minister, that falls within my jurisdiction, and my transport team discharged the function of the highways authority on our behalf. But it's I do like Senator Moore referred to it and several others as TTS, and I must confess I do miss the old name TTS, but we are now the infrastructure department. And my officers are paid, and they are very professional and are permanent civil servants who day in, day out, look after the interests of the island. They comment on planning applications, they advise on future applications at the pre-application stage, and they ensure that future development proposals are safe and meet our local highway standards and are future-proofed. In undertaking this work, they also ensure that all different modes of transport are assessed and that developments meeting our agreed policies on sustainable transport. Sir, we must ensure that due process takes place and takes place at the right time. The time to assess the actual design of the road, its highways impact, its wider transport impact is through the planning process. As the Minister for Infrastructure, I am a consultee to the planning applications. And my team will be ready to discharge this function at that time. It is the normal thing to do, and it is the normal process to follow. I can happily say that to date, our hospital project team have consulted with operations and transport, highways and maintenance, and public transport as representatives of the Highway Authority who act on our behalf. These teams have been involved since 5 shortlisted sites were announced. The Highway Authority did not have any input into the process to shortlist the 5 sites announced in July 2020. The level of involvement these teams have had with the project team is typical for this type of planning application. The project team have no legal obligation to consult with the Highway Authority prior to making a planning application, although clearly it's been sensible for them to have done so. Of course, this project has its own key issues. The same can be said of any development scheme, large or small. We have robust laws and procedures to ensure that key issues are identified, addressed, and where possible dealt with in order for planning approvals to be gained. In this case, there are obviously issues to be dealt with. They include connecting the hospital to the town centre and surrounding areas to enable staff, visitors and patients to access via sustainable modes. That is, how the proposals align with the sustainable transport policy. Measures that seek to recognise that fewer motor vehicle journeys will be good for Jersey in terms of how the development will mitigate its impact. Ensuring resilience of access for blue light services in the event of accidents, extreme weather events, making sure that any new infrastructure is provided to modern standards which meets best practice designed for vulnerable road users to ensure the best outcome for the public of Jersey, and how the car parking arrangements will be managed, also the issues of highway safety. What is happening to the existing site so that the net transport impact can be identified, and clarity as to what traffic management measures are to be deployed to manage access from the north and the surrounding highway network, not just Westmount Road. We are on the case. It is my duty as Infrastructure Minister that my officials will be assessing, considering, and will be party to the planning process. All these issues are important. As I've said, it's good that the Assembly are thinking of them. However, it is an important, however, all of these will be resolved through the planning application process, which will include a fully independent and transparent public inquiry. In coming to the preferred access route, a significant amount of options were required to be tested, owing to the scale of public and political opinion around the project. Option 7 is the most practical for vehicular access, and we will be seeking high quality sustainable transport infrastructure alongside improvements to the road. We will be asking the project team to submit traffic impact assessments with the planning application to support this proposal. Increasing the width of Westmount Road is essential if we are to run regular bus services to the proposed facility. Problematic issues were identified with the one-way access options to the north of Overdale, including impacts on walking routes to school and traffic impacts. There has been a world-renowned transport consultant working on this project. So I need to be clear again, we are requiring local Jersey highway standards to be met and a solution which works on our local highway network. We need to think about our clear and present need now. We need a new hospital and it needs a proper access road. It also needs to be assessed through the process and procedures that this Assembly has laid down in law. We need to trust our professional officers and let them do their jobs on our behalf and on behalf of the island. They do this day out for islanders and they will do the same again for this proposal. So in summary, I would reject and urge members to reject this amendment. It's not required, and we say it's well intentioned. We already have systems in place to deal with such matters, and we have professionals who will be involved at the right time during the planning process. I will just touch on a few things that other members have mentioned previously, sir. The transport plan is part of the planning process. We have done alterations previously at the top of Queen's Road. There's new bollards gone in on Clark Avenue. We've put new zebra crossings up there, but that is not suitable for a major route for the hospital. So I do implore members to reject the amendment and support the main proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment? No other member wishes to speak. And I close the debate and call upon Senator Moore to respond. Senator.
Thank you, sir, and I thank all members for their participation, their patience and their attention today. The government claims that this amendment is calling for too much detail at this stage of the process and it will cause delay and increase costs. Conversely, the argument of the scrutiny panel is to the contrary. The intention of this amendment is not to meddle or micromanage. We are seeking reassurance to keep this critical project on track, not to delay it. This project will go to a planning process, but in order to be confident in the chances of the application, why can we not be better informed? As an Assembly, we do not seek to be a planning authority. However, we do speak for the people. As we all know, people really care about this matter. They're interested, they want to know more. The people value the environment of Westmount. They value the impact it has on the townscape, and they want to understand how this proposal will impact upon it. So, as the representatives of the people and having been through an objective process, we're simply asking for reassurance. As Senator Valois drew out when she asked a point of order, there is a disparity between the wording in the proposition, the report and the description it gives against the claims that are being made today. That option 6, using the existing road, could still be pursued by the main proposition. The Constable of St Brelard called the government's performance in this project shambolic, and indeed it is, sir. So much so that it risks the whole project falling over when it does get to the planning stage because of a basic lack of transparency. To illustrate, the proposition of P167 describes a two-way road with active travel. Earlier, Senator Farnham tried to reassure us by stating that the road would only be 7 metres wide. However, the Chief Minister and the Constable of St John both later expanded on that point by describing that the route would need to be 12 metres wide to make room for the road, the verge and an active travel path. The existing road, option 6, is not wide enough to meet those requirements. Therefore, the claims we have heard today that option 6, the existing road, is still a possibility, cannot be the case. Ministers have claimed today that the access road being proposed has the least impact on homes. That's incorrect. It's option 6, which is the existing road, that has the least impact on the homes and the environment of the 71 routes that were measured against the criteria. If Senator Farnham is really determined to pursue option 6, we would welcome a week's delay for him to bring a clear proposition to the Assembly to make that clear. Then perhaps we would be reassured. Or if he prefers, he could follow the suggestion that Senator Gorst most helpfully made. I urge members to be very careful when those responsible for this project are changing their story with such great frequency. We and the public need clarity and confidence that this project will get done under their oversight. The government claim that the public are misinformed. Well, if that is the case, it's simply because the Our Hospital team have failed to conduct proper engagement to build confidence in their project or to demonstrate that they're committed to serving the island and delivering a realistic and affordable plan. Remember, the report of the scrutiny panel and our revisers, twice we have highlighted that this is a flawed process. Deputy Higgins has rightly acknowledged his discomfort due to the lack of information available through the process. As the Future Hospital Review Panel advisors have noticed, the focus of the Political Oversight Group and the Our Hospital team is on speed, and that has caused shortcuts. The evidence to support robust decision making is lacking and not what we should expect from such a major project. If I could remind the Assembly of the conclusions of the scrutiny report, it states the level of information and analysis produced to undertake the route selection was inadequate. Marking criteria were largely subjective and not measurable. Some errors were found within the marking. The number of options considered was large, 71. Indeed, our advisors said that they had never seen a project that had so many options presented. But the detail used to decide was low. Outcomes were recorded only, no minutes of discussions have been made available. Westmount Road may be suitable for vehicular access, but may be less suitable for walking and cycling. Travel survey and traffic data used are not current. Option 7 is only marginally better than option 6, the do nothing, which may suggest a weakness in the criteria chosen. There's been limited engagement with the Jersey Highway Authority to date. Ability to meet the desired programme is the overwhelming criteria for selection. Therefore, sir, I ask, is it right to vote contra in this debate, knowing that such errors have been made? Let's look at it perhaps in another way. Would it display common sense to vote against this amendment in that knowledge? I suggest not. Senator Farnham and the Our Hospital Political Oversight Group members claim this amendment will cost £30 million and delay the entire hospital project. What is the logic behind that claim? Why would producing a drawing to assist public understanding, a drawing that will be useful and necessary for the planning application? That application is planned to be submitted in September. It is only the 1st of February today. Surely this will help the process, not hinder it, sir. And to answer Deputy Martin's question, we and our advisors consider that there will be no financial consequences to adopting this amendment, as the work is part of the budgeted process to achieve the project. The work has to be done at some point. As we've been reminded today, the major decision will rest upon the planning process. Given the huge level of concern that we see and hear from the public and the members of this Assembly, the work of the Political Oversight Group so far does not appear to have addressed the concerns that were expressed by the previous planning inspector and that were outlined in the site selection report. there remains a major risk, as Deputy Ash acknowledged, of this project failing at that final hurdle. The software is available in the island. A 3D image could be made within a matter of hours. So why hasn't this happened? Is it normal to propose a planning application without considering a drawing to show the impact the proposals will have? The Deputy of St Peter declares that we should all just let the political oversight group continue to get on with the planning process. However, let me stress again the flaws in the oversight that the scrutiny panel have pointed out to the Assembly not once but twice. Also, the contradictions that have abounded from government over the weekend. This simply serves to outline why the amendment is needed. On Channel 103 on Friday, Senator Farnham suggested that the new road would potentially extend People's Park. The word here is potentially. We know from reading the government's own documents that 2,355 metres squared of canopy will be lost if the option is pursued. However, Senator Farnham had publicly stated that the intention is to not lose a single tree. He has now this afternoon given a further explanation of that point, to which I thank him. And I think I will allow members to draw their own conclusions, best described as a rather surprising interpretation. This is the point of the amendment. Sadly, the scrutiny panel has once again identified concerns in the political oversight of the decision making. The Assembly needs greater reassurance. The public needs greater reassurance. It is a simple request that can be achieved with minimal cost and minimal time. Show us a drawing, Senator, and then we might feel reassured. The refusal to do so is damaging public confidence rather than improving it. Why has there been less public engagement than there was for the Future Hospital project, to the extent that the government claims the public are misinformed? Surely the Our Hospital Political Oversight Group should take responsibility for that. Good politics is not about threats. It's about gaining respect and trust, particularly when there's a significant amount of public money at stake, money that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren will be repaying. I ask members to remember why 23 of us voted for the Constable of St Heliers amendment to the site selection debate. Had the proposition adequately responded to the reasons for supporting Constable Crowcroft? It certainly doesn't address the issue of sustainability that Deputy Morrell highlighted. This has been pointed out by the Constable of St Helier in our report. We could also go as far as to look back to the conclusions of the planning inspector, who acknowledged the issues with building on top of a cliff, as did the site selection document that was appended to P123. The summary in relation to access and highways to the Overdale site said, if I may quote, and apologies for the aircraft noise, significant infrastructure and land acquisitions are anticipated to be required to provide good quality pedestrian and cycle routes to the site. The topography of the site will, however, limit the proportion of journeys made by walking and cycling. Given the limited bus services operating past Overdale Hospital, significant ongoing investment is likely to be required to provide a high-frequency bus service from Liberation Bus Station. Significant infrastructure and land acquisitions are anticipated to be required to provide an improved access and mitigate the traffic impacts on the local highway network. Whilst the site can be accessed from the north and south roads, to the north are deemed to be less appropriate for hospital traffic, including ambulances. End of quote. I can only conclude that members who voted for the site knew that what they were voting for. Of course, they also knew that the Gloucester Street site was described in the same report as a sustainable site, given its location in the centre of the town, easily accessible on foot and existing bus routes. We all share a desire to see a fit-for-purpose hospital for our community. This amendment is, as Deputy Pamplin pointed out, simply about gaining greater confidence in the project. Why is it too much to ask that what the townscape will look like if the access road is passed? particularly when we can see that the existing road, option 6, when measured against the criteria of the project team, is only behind the preferred route by 1 point. Remember the words of Sir Philip Balash, who in his letter to the JEP said no individual would be as reckless as this government proposes to be. Those words rang in my ears as I heard Senator Farnham claim this afternoon that the 12-metre wide route would not be a UK-style road treatment. How does he know if he hasn't seen an illustration? The amendment will not cause delay, sir, or additional cost. It will simply ensure that necessary parts of the process are conducted in a proper fashion. The cost of design and illustrations will have to be met at some point prior to the planning application being submitted. This is not an additional cost. In supporting this amendment, I suggest that members are being good clients. They're trying to gain perspective and some reasonable success over this massive project. They're trying to rebuild public confidence to ensure that when that planning application is submitted, it has the best chance of success. Surely that is what the public expect us to do. So I propose the amendment and I ask for the appel.
Thank you very much, Senator. I ask the greffier to post a voting link in the chat. And I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting.
I can't get in at all.
Is that the Deputy Trinity?
Yes, I can't get in at all, and I can't even get in on chat. I've got in on microphone, but I haven't got in on chat.
Well, do you want to tell us what your vote is?
My vote is contre.
Sir, Deputy Samaria, I'm in the same predicament, sir. I cannot get in at all. Can I too vote?
You also wish to vote contre?
Yes, please, sir.
Well, the amendment has been defeated. In the chat, we note 24 votes, 19 votes for, 24 votes contre, no abstention. And I have 2 votes for and 3 votes contre in the link, in the chat, I should say.
Could we have the pool?
Start.
Yes.
Thank you.
I don't get why.
Those voting for in the link, Deputy Pamplin, Deputy St Martin, Deputy Ward, the Conotab of St Saviour, the Conotab of St Helier, Deputy Gardner, Deputy Lehegara, Senator Mezek, Deputy Higgins, Senator Moore, the Conotab of St Brelard, the Conotab of Greville, the Conotab of St Martin, Deputy Alves, the Conotab of St Juan, Senator Valois, Senator Pallett, Deputy Morel, Deputy Pershard. And those voting contre, the Conotab of St Clement, Senator Le Fondre, the Connétable of St Lawrence, the Connétable of St Ouen, Deputy Guida, Deputy Labbe, the Deputy of Greville, Senator Ferguson, Senator Farnham, Deputy Martin, Deputy Wickenden, the Deputy of St Ouen, Deputy Pinnell, Deputy Ayer, Deputy Lewis, Deputy Ash, the Connétable of Trinity, Deputy Truscott, the Connétable of St John, Deputy Masson, the Deputy of St Peter, the Connétable of St Mary, the Deputy of St John, and Senator Gorst. And I apologise, earlier on voting poor, I think I indicated it was the Constable of St Ouen. I should have said the Constable of St Peter.
Well, thank you. We now move back to debate on the main proposition as amended. Does any member wish to speak?
So did we hear about the vote from the chat, sir? It's Deputy Sutherland here, sir.
Yes.
Did we
Yes,
hear
Deputy.
the votes from the chat as well?
Sorry, in the chat we had voting poor Deputy Southern and Deputy Tadia.
Very well. We now continue with the debate on the main proposition as amended. Does any member wish to speak on the main proposition? Deputy Masson.
Thank you, sir. We've had a long debate on the amendment, and what largely seems to me to be issues around the planning application are ones that we have thrashed out. But so I will put this question to the Deputy Chief Minister who's overseeing this project, is how will the political oversight group, when developing their planning application, engage with key stakeholders? Because we know that when planning applications go in, it is good practice that developers should hold key stakeholder meetings to take on concerns and queries. And I think that would assure a lot of members and members of the public who have raised concerns about the trees, about heritage, etc., that there is a proper process for them to engage with. And I know in Deputy Pamplin's speech he spoke about a transparent process, and indeed a planning application process is incredibly transparent. We've had that looked at independently several times in Jersey, and it's been supported for the way that it conducts itself many times. So I would ask Senator Farnham to respond to that question, just to let members be aware that time was found with officers where I was able to get a briefing from them. I did raise concerns in my remit of Children's Minister regarding the playground there, and not only did officers assure me that they didn't even think it necessarily would be touched, but if it was, there was scope and budgets in order to replace the park. But I'm comforted by the amendment brought by the Constable of St Helier, which also reinforces that particular point. So, sir, that is just a question I would want to pose to Senator Farnham about how the planning application process is going to be supported so that residents and other key stakeholders can contribute to the process. And I think that will deal with many of the concerns that have been flying into our inboxes over the past weekend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on this debate? Connétable St Brelade.
Thank you, sir. I would like to follow up earlier contributions, sir, in that the matter clearly isn't closed yet. We still have to vote on the basic proposition. There's been much discussion in the debate as to how much information states members and indeed the public might be given in any proposition. We so often hear, sir, that the devil is in the detail. The ministers involved will need to justify why this is the case, but I would suggest to them, with all due respect, that their opacity with regard to detail has put this issue fairly and squarely on their doorstep, and holding a gun to members' heads with threats of delays has simply indicated a failure of this process, and I suggest so that this should be addressed in the future. Why, sir, have contracts been signed when there is uncertainty? It does seem to be commercially naive, and perhaps in summing up, the Minister would expand on why this has occurred. I suggest that the assertion that we must accept this proposition or it'll be the end of life as we know it is filled with political innuendo and objectively should be ignored. The suggestion that the POG couldn't pass on information they didn't have, sir, is a poor excuse for not having done the work to glean the information themselves. There is a perception from some ministers that scrutiny are attempting to make political gain by lodging this amendment. I can assure members, sir, that it is far from the case. Well, I refer to the amendment, of course, I'm talking about the basic proposition. I can assure members, sir, that scrutiny's involvement is far from the case of trying to make political gain. We tried to be objective, taken qualified advice and submitted a report to enable members to make a more informed decision given the absence of detail in P167. I was flabbergasted, sir, to hear that in the apparent one government climate, there has been no or little communication between the hospital group and the Transport Authority. It's unbelievable and goes back to an earlier point regarding the lack of traffic modelling. I question, sir, whether the Infrastructure Department, in fact, has a capacity to provide the information the Minister suggests. Does the Minister have capacity in his existing budget to enlarge his department? And if not, how will it be funded? Then there is the lack of transparency around costs, sir. And I suppose the propositions in the past have authorised the government to spend some £16.6 million to acquire properties for the hospital site. Whether or not this sum is included in the 38.7 million site-specific commitment in P167 isn't clear. Surely, sir, we must stop spending money like throwing confetti, which seems to be the case. The tax-paying public, sir, are far from content, and I would urge members and ministers particularly to listen to their message. All risk, and I say this very tongue-in-cheek, a gibbet being erected on Gallows Hill for future use. Rest assured, sir, this is not an incitement to violence, but feelings are very strong. Sir, I cannot sensibly support this proposition in the absence of realistic clarity. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Conattab, the Deputy of St Martin.
Thank you, sir. So members will all be aware that I've got quite a bit of history when it comes to hospital sites and the various debates associated with that subject. I was the minister that refused the application on Gloucester Street and waited for the amended proposal, because that, sir, is the way that applications of this size and magnitude usually progress. They always, nearly always, need amendments and changes to get them to a point where they are acceptable to approve. Once that original application went away for the necessary changes, I thought it was perfectly acceptable and would have been in construction by now, and it would have been one that we could afford. I was the one that pleaded, and I don't use the word lightly, pleaded with our current Environment Minister to do anything but throw out that second application. But we know what happened. And of course, what happened was that we eventually ended up with a non-debate on the hospital sites not so long ago. And I bitterly regret not being more aware and awake on that day. I can only say, sir, that I now get a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach every time I talk about hospitals, and this debate is one of those occasions. On that day, sir, a majority of States members voted to build a new hospital at Overdale, a decision that I think now that some will, after attending the initial briefing on the whole issue of access, I think now members will be regretting. And of course, Deputy Higgins quite rightly pointed out the site selection process, where we started with 5 sites, 3 which were totally unacceptable. And of course, we were left with the 2. And then States members made a decision, and I would venture to suggest, sir, for 2 reasons. 1, they wanted to just get on and do something. And secondly, they didn't want to fight over People's Park. And in both cases, I would suggest to them those are not good reasons for deciding a site for a new hospital. So we've been told time and time again today that we risk delay and damage to this now approved project at Overdale. But sir, the delays are absolutely the fault of this government, a government that has steered the various debates towards their preferred option, irrespective of proper scrutiny, information, openness and transparency, and in ways that have quite frankly confused the public and led to a huge amount of scepticism and concern. I know that the site has been chosen, and I can imagine members sitting at home right now with their microphones muted shouting at their screens, sour grapes, bad loser. And I accept that, sir. I made my mind up about this hospital a long time ago, and I don't and am not one for changing. I've been in more hospitals than very many states members in the last 10 years, and I have seen the good, the bad and the ugly, both in Jersey and off island. In all cases, though, there are some common denominators, and the first is staff. And regardless of what we do, we have the most fantastic staff, and I'd like to thank them again publicly today for all the empathy and help they give their patients every day of the year. They work in conditions which do need improving and in many cases replacing. But so the other common denominators are that the public, those of us who need a hospital, need to be able to get there easily and without stress. And the other thing that a hospital needs to do is work. It's not what they look like on the outside or the view from the window. Some of the very best hospitals look out on urban landscapes and are less than attractive to look at. The thing we did right at the beginning, and that was what I was referring to this whole project as a new hospital, we should have called this a hospital extension. And if we had done that, I venture to suggest we could be well on the way to construction now, because whether you like it or not, we have a current site that doesn't need £1 billion to rebuild and extend. We have a site that people can access and do access on a daily basis. We have a site that won't increase traffic, emissions, or the use of roads and cars. We have a site that won't increase damage to the environment, a site that's not going to cover green fields with concrete. We have a site that our wonderful nurses and doctors can get to quickly and easily from their accommodation, and a site that the public are just used to. And I could go on and on and on. So it's my opinion, and people will know it because I've said it before, but from day one, this government, the politics of the whole hospital have taken over from this government, and common sense, sensible financial decisions, and the desire for a standout building have led us to where we are today. Common sense has just been thrown away. Anyone, in my view, in their right minds knew that this choice of site, Overdale, with all the environmental and access problems, was snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And it's my opinion that we should never have chosen it. Members don't have to take my view. They only need to read the words of Philip Stadden, a hugely respected independent planning inspector, who in December 2018 said this about Overdale, and he said, whilst this is an existing hospital location and within the built-up area, it is physically separated from the main town, and the topography makes it inaccessible, particularly by walking and cycling modes of travel. And I know, sir, just referring to the speech of Senator Ferguson, who said that most people arrive at hospital in a car or an ambulance, she must be forgetting, of course, the very many nurses, doctors and other people who work in the hospital. Anyway, Philip Stadden goes on to say the intensification of development required to accommodate the hospital, combined with the elevated ridge location within the green backdrop zone, would result in a very significant adverse visual impact. There could also be adverse residential amenity and biodiversity impacts. This option would create significant challenges with the island plan. And so anyone who knows planning inspectors terminology knows that when you put the word significant alongside the word challenges, that you are in big trouble. And as Senator Gore said in his speech, the planning decision is yet to come. So this site, this project, this access road is going to be beset with delays, with problems, with reviews and questions. And if this government just wants to get on and build on the site, and I fully accept that the decision has been made by the Assembly, then they need to start being open and show the detail that anyone needs to make a decision of this type. I, for one, have always gone by the rules of never signing a contract before reading it. And as a minister, I never signed a ministerial decision without looking at the wording or a scrutiny review without looking at exactly what I was putting pen to paper. The detail, sir, as the Constable of St Bernard has just pointed out, the detail, the devil is in the detail. In this case, this position, we do not have the detail. So I'm sorry to be negative. I do always try to find a compromise, and I'd like to move forward and do what I can, but I can't and won't be supporting this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. The Deputy of Greville.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'm just going to speak very briefly to thank all the many islanders who I've heard from over the weekend, and apologise if I haven't responded to all of them. I did respond to a lot of them, but over the weekend as well, we had the opportunity to go through the scrutiny report, which I found very, very useful, and with the recommendations. And there was a recommendation, the option 6 versus the option 7 route up there. Now, notwithstanding the fact that scrutiny have lost their amendment to this proposition, I hope the political oversight group will indeed do as the Minister did suggest in his meeting that I attended on Friday, and consider option 6 every step of the way, because I am concerned about the historical sites and Jersey's heritage and whatever. I must confess it's not quite like some of the information that was put in the public domain on social media and so on and so forth. But we have a 6-metre road going up there at the moment, and it's being suggested we need a 7-metre wide road. I'm convinced that the cycle paths and pedestrian routes have to run parallel to the road every step of the way. Now, I would like some consideration, and a lot of consideration, given to option 6. And so I have voted for this project to go ahead. I actually think Overdale will be a good site. It will be a good site for patients to have an outlook over the sea, over the park. And I think now that the decisions have been made and people can get on and do their work and deliver what we hope to be a fantastic facility for our island, for our community, for the clinicians and all the staff who are going to work in the hospital. So that is a plea. It's for politicians now, states members and island residents to really get behind this long overdue facility for our community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. The Conor St Wom.
Thank you, sir.
I firstly have to say I was not much. I have a great deal of respect for the Deputy Luce. I was a bit disappointed that once again we are trying to reopen the debate on the hospital site. As in my view, there's many views as sites in Jersey about for hospital sites, and I think we've had that debate, and I think now is the time to close that debate and move on to getting this project delivered. Overdale is the choice, and rightly so in my view. I went up there with Constable of St John's before we had the debate, in fact, and it was obvious to me that there was plenty of room and it was ideally located, and the hospital of choice could be developed there. Turning to the question of the access route, Westmount is a site that's well known to me, not least because I used to commute up and down there quite a lot, but also I compete every year in a motorsport event, and I can assure you I know every corner on that hill, some of them perhaps too well. And I also have walked the course every year several times, know about all the houses and properties that border the hill, because not least as a club we have to communicate with the homeowners. So I can say I know the area as well as anyone else. So for me, when the report came back about the options, to me it was blindingly obvious that that the access route to the hospital should be up Westmount. That is, of course, if you discount the King George V Homes route up through the middle, and we know why that's not a realistic option. If you look at the rest of the networks, and indeed I was hugely impressed by the number of options they managed to extract from this report. Many of them I hadn't thought of. Each one is beset by problems, and you only have to sit and look at the video to see what those problems could be. And it is obvious to me that the only access route is the one up Westmount with an up and a down carriageway. Now both options have been. The favoured option, I think, is the one that probably we will end up doing, because I think if you look at option 6, which is essentially to do nothing, I think that's a decision that once the hospital's open and built, we will regret, because I don't think, in my experience, the road is big enough to get larger vehicles up and down. And I think once we've had a few large vehicles meeting in the lower section by the Bowls Club, and not able to pass and having to back up, we'll realise that actually we should have done something about it. So I think option 7 is probably the only option that is realistic. And I think when we start to look at what that option will look like, I think we should be reminded, that, as other members have, about what the Constable of Trinity said, is that this is the approval in principle stage. The planning stage will give us the detail. And I think for those members of the public who are concerned, they will be able to engage in the planning process, and they will be able to see in detail what it's going to look like, and also they will be able to have their views heard. And I think that's a very important point. I think also, I mean, like every other member, I've had an avalanche of emails over the weekend, and that does in some ways tell you something. But I think for a large number of those concerns have been about the destruction of People's Park, the myth that we're going to have a 2-lane motorway up and down to Westmount. And I think if you look at the proposal put forward by the councillors of Helly, which I'm very grateful for, I think people's minds should be put at rest, because it's quite clear from that the impact on People's Park, and reading the words, will minimise the reduction in green space and tree planting in People's Park and Whalesmack Road and their environments, and any other parish land that's impacted by the improvements will be rectified. It also makes it quite clear that we will be relocating the Bowls Club in a site that is of their choice and is suitable for their use, and also that any lost parking will be replaced elsewhere. So, can you hear me? Because there's a lot of interference.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, sir. So, as I say, I think one should. Members of the public who are greatly concerned by what is happening, and reading through the emails that I've received, other than arguing that we should be looking at Warwick Farm and other hospital sites, is a great deal of concern expressed about the impact on People's Park and the impact that the road will have. But I think the Constable of St Heliers proposition and the planning process should, in my view, give members of the public ample opportunity to express their views and to see what the detail will look like. So I think, given those points, I think members should be reassured. But I would make a plea to the Hospital Oversight Board. I think if I had a criticism, it's that communication with the public so far has not been of a standard that perhaps we should be expecting. It is, as everyone has said, as people have said, important to take the public with us. And I think that the raft of concerns we've had should be a wake-up call to us that we need to up our game in that respect. And we need to explain to people exactly what is involved and what it will look like when that detail is available, so that they feel reassured that what's happening is not the disaster that they in their worst nightmares imagine it will be. So I would plead with Senator Farnham and a man I know who's incredibly reasonable to look at this aspect and to look at the communications and ensure that we do take the general public with us. And I know a substantial effort has been made over the weekend, because we as members received communications that we could use to communicate with members of the public who raised their concerns. But it's an important point, and it will get more and more important as we get closer to the finish of this project, that we take the general public with us. But I think it's right to take the general public with us, because the end result will be worth it. In my mind, I envisage a very high quality hospital, and I envisage an access route that will be usable, will be sustainable, and will not have a huge impact on the existing environment. And I'm sure that the Hospital Oversight Board will work very hard to ensure that's the case. Because I think if they don't, they're certainly going to hear about it from members of the public. But I think the overriding theme in my mind is the my deputy's speech and his plea about the state of the current hospital and the absolutely dreadful and appalling conditions that our staff are being asked to work in, particularly now, although Jersey hasn't seen the worst of the pandemic in terms of impact on our hospital. Nevertheless, there has been an impact, and operations have been postponed, and generally our health staff are working under an enormous amount of stress. And I think to delay this project further, to not approve this proposal today, will have a huge impact on their mental well-being and the valuable services they deliver to the general public. And I should just like to echo other comments. We have an incredible health staff, nurses, doctors, and the other people that work in the hospital who worked incredibly hard in very difficult conditions. And I take my hat off to them. And I think at the very least, we owe it to them to progress this project to its conclusion and give them what they really need, which is a quality hospital. So on that, sir, I would urge members to support this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. To echo Deputy Masson and to some extent the Connétable of St. Juan, can I suggest that Senator Farnham gives a formal undertaking for regular consultation with the public as well as scrutiny, about what's going on? Because I think, as everybody's saying, that's the bottom of it. I mean, I've had recommendations of design for the actual amendment to Westmount Road at the end there. Everything from a sort of Roman granite viaduct, all the way round to all sorts of flights of fancy. It's incredible. I would point out, though, that we do need to watch various statistics over the next, whilst this is all going on, particularly like migration trends in the New World Order. At the same time, with more immigration, the town will expand to round Overdale. We've got to sort of keep a watch on an eye on the outside world, as well as what's going on, looking inwards. And I also hope that you will consult the wheelchair and mobile scooter. I presume they've got associations. I mean, can you moderate the gradient so that it doesn't make too steep a gradient, because you really don't want sort of the wheelchairs to burn out their brakes on the way down and things like that. You know, as long as we keep the public relations angle in mind, or not the public relations, the public information angle in mind, then, you know, we can take the public with us. Anyway, you know, I still say that we should carry on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. Conor Bond, you have a question for the Attorney General?
Yes, sir. I forwarded the Attorney General a letter that I think we all received about legal action that was to be threatened against the state or the Hospital Oversight Board if this proposition was passed. And I did give him a reasonable amount of advance warning. I wonder whether he, A, felt it was appropriate, and B, felt he was able to comment on that letter, sir.
Well, the two may, of course, be very different things if it is threatened legal action. But, Mr. Attorney, are you able to assist the Assembly? I'm afraid I haven't seen this letter myself.
I'm sorry, I only saw the letter this morning, and it wasn't clear to me that it went to all states members. So I'm just wondering whether it is appropriate for me to comment on the letter.
Well, it seems to be, Mr. Attorney, that has to be a matter for you. There is always obviously a danger on making any kind of comment in a televised state sitting in connection with the merits or demerits of any proposed legal action, which might involve the Assembly, but sometimes that is essential. Are you able to put it in the form of a question specifically to the Attorney, Conor?
I think, given what the Attorney said, sir, and your comments, I think what I'll do is I'll put it in a written question at the next sitting.
Very well, thank you very much. Deputy Truscott.
Yes, thank you, sir. I will be brief. I too would just like to thank all the islanders that did contact me and all the other states members on this particular issue. I hope I've responded to everyone, and likewise I apologise if I've missed anyone. I did say I would listen intently to the debate, and I did in my response to many of the emails. I did. So I'm getting a neck out here, but I'll work with it. I did respond by saying that I felt the government were to a great degree responsible for the lot of misunderstanding that's out there. And that really it's their responsibility to put any negatives or incorrect information right. And I think hopefully Deputy Farnham will take that on board. I know we've got a very professional PR team now looking after this project, so that if they do see any inaccuracies reported, or if they do see any negatives that can be met with a positive, then I really do urge them that they do that, because look, we all want a hospital. We realise the Gloucester Street one has had its day. We've made the decision where it's going. For me, if it wasn't going to be through the valley from King George V cottages, then the only other plausible route was West Mount. It's just one of those obvious things in life. I got to thank, it was a week ago today that I joined the Friends of our hospital on the walk up the hill and around about, and I've got to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. A very pleasant bunch of people, very informative I found it, and I did learn, and I hope other members actually joined them on that walk, because you know, it's good to see things in the natural context. Certainly been on the planning committee when we're doing a determination of any sizable project, or any project. In fact, we will invariably try to do a site visit, because when you're there, you get a better understanding of things in the round. And let's face it, there are some immense challenges. Drainage, for one, was something I hadn't really appreciated until I went up the hill. I mean, you see there's these pipes coming from off the fields. And I've got to say, certainly when we tarmac the 2 agricultural fields, they're going to be a particular challenge in capturing that water and dispersing it in an appropriate way. So there are some massive engineering challenges ahead. I've got great faith in the planning policies going forward, in the planning application principles, and the whole thing, the whole project, the whole Overdale project will be homed in by our island plan laws. And let's face it, these are laws that were created via the Assembly in the very first place. And considerations such as green zone, green backdrop, unreasonable harm to neighbours, unreasonable harm to neighbours' amenities. You've got highways issues, you've got all those things, but that will, everything now that is being designed will go towards the eventual planning application. And the great thing about a public hearing when it does happen is that every person in Jersey can have their say, whether it's a written submission or if they want to turn up at a public inquiry meeting and put their penny's worth in. And I think that in itself will be a very positive thing for the whole project going forward. I mean, I've got to say, I don't envy the independent planning inspector, and I certainly don't envy the planning minister with his eventual decision that he's going to have to take. Just regarding that, and harking back to a point Deputy Morell made earlier, sir, there was some supplemental planning guidance from the planning minister with regard to heritage, with regard carbon footprint, etc. The team working on the plans going forward will have to take all of that into account. So that's something that obviously the team will have to be very aware of. They have got to get this over the line, and let's face it, Overdale has already failed. They've really got a challenge ahead of them. I'm sure Senator Farnham in his summing up, sir, will acknowledge. But I say overall, I think let's get this back on track. I'm so conscious, as I'm sure we all are, that the poundometer is ticking at an alarming rate. It's been estimated, I believe, that by the time this is finished, that we get to planning, that we'd have expended some £50 million so far to date, and that's without a spade in the ground. And just to remind members, Lekena Bay School cost £50 million, completed. So round up and finish, just to say I will be supporting this proposition. I do believe we have got to get on with it. I'm not being rash in that decision. I don't feel like a gun's been put to my head. I have full faith in the planning application process. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Trinity.
Yes, thank you, sir. And can I thank Deputy Alves? It last back in. I was hoping to speak earlier on, but unfortunately I've been having trouble with my laptop. But all I just wanted to say, and just to confirm, following on from the Constable of St. Juan's, is that I am in major discussions with the Bowls Club. As you know, with my other hat on in sport, we have met with them. They are very keen, just to bring everybody up to date. They're all very keen to move, and providing they get a new clubhouse, they're looking for more car parking, and they want a bigger clubhouse. We had a very, very good conversation with them on Thursday. We met with the committee, and what I'm intending to do, because I'm sitting on POG as well, I can report back via sport to POG as to where they stand. I mean, as far as they're concerned, I have to say, and I'm smiling a little, the quicker they do it, the better it is. But they will certainly keep out of any discussion over the roads, which was one of the things which I thought was quite refreshing. It was more about when are we going and what are we doing. Now, the intention is, as the Constable of St. Juan's did say, we have been in discussions with the Constable of St. Helier with regards to where they are going. They will be staying, hopefully, in St. Helier. We are under discussions with regards to Warwick Farm. I make no bones about that now. And the people in Warwick Farm, the hemp people, have already been told, and I gather they have no objections as well. So it was more of an update, sir, as to where we are with regards to the Bowls Club. and I will be more than happy with regards to the scrutiny panel to let them know exactly what we're doing with them, and so that they're not disjointed from anything that we discuss with them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy, does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition. Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. As I alluded to in my speech in the previous debate, I wanted to start this speech by referring to the situation that's brought us here today, because I think it's really important. As we all agreed, and as many have said, we're all Democrats and we appreciate when Assembly votes something through, we move forward. This Assembly, however, voted to do an experiment of 3-week sittings this year, and we have started that process. But I think that process has failed at the first hurdle. We've had one State Assembly sitting in January, and we are having an extra one because the Senator realised that with the change of system, he had to bring this forward, as he's explained. And it's put us all in a very unfortunate position where we don't really want to be here, but we are here and we have to do these things. And it's frustrating because I think it has not helped what Senator Farnham is trying to do with the project that he has responsibility for. And it's put us all in very difficult positions. Last year, we had, and I remember, sir, you making a point of this in your speech at Christmas. I forget the number off the top of my head, 50 odd state sittings because of the situation we found ourselves. And we've suddenly jumped to the other end because of the intention of this experiment. But I just think this is where the problem lies. The island wants to be reassured by what it sees as the overall authority of the governing of this island, the State's Assembly. And here we are today, and we've heard some very good speeches, and we've debated an issue that has caused our inbox to be flooded by a lot of concerned islanders who feel unsure about these things. And this is the point I made earlier for me, that there is an issue here, that what we're hearing from the people that we take an oath of office to represent are telling us they feel, for whatever reason, disconnected and unsure about what is happening. And I feel in that regard, we are letting them down. I have the greatest respect to Senator Farnham and the Chief Minister, and I appreciate both their interactions with me. Senator Farnham coming to speak to me personally, and also the Chief Minister calling me up on the phone a few nights ago. And that's really helpful because we always hear, sir, that the door is always open to the council ministers in Broad Street. But I'd like to make the point that that works both ways. Our doors are always open. The non-executive states members of this assembly, that has to work two ways, and it's good when we have that interaction both sides. So I just want to make that point clear, because that's what the thrust of my earlier speech was. We have got to work together, but we've also got to listen to what a lot of islanders are telling us. And I just feel that there's been an opportunity missed in this process to work collaboratively. That's the point of scrutiny, as I've become to learn in the last 3 years of working in this assembly. It's the third voice of this assembly. It's the independent process as a critical friend to support and improve ultimately what we're all here to do, to get the best outcome for islanders and make sure people are heard. And I just think this is an unfortunate situation. As many have said, the Overdale process is in train, and this assembly, in the way that it did, said to the government, here you go, we need you to succeed because this island needs a successful end to the unfortunate drama that's unfolded over many years. There are concerns about this process, and I just don't think that can be discounted. And I need to be convinced about the delay argument, because I've read the scrutiny report, gone through it, and I've read all the paperwork and all the helpful information that's been sent from the government as well. But it's just not tallying up. I've consistently talked about this moment of where we are, that we've just lost this disconnect and trust and transparency and communication. We have to listen to that. We have to look inside ourselves. Got to get things done, but there's got to be a two-way process. I just think we could do that so much better. So I continue to look forward to listening to the rest of the debate and the senators summing up. But that's my position on this. Something doesn't feel right, but I'm keeping an open mind. That's what we're here to do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Conatab St Helier.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to follow Deputy Pamplin, and I think he made some very telling points in that speech, as he did earlier when he spoke about the importance of engagement. And I must say, while I absolutely agree that in Senator Le Fondre we have a Chief Minister who is extremely willing to communicate to us as States members, and certainly the first Chief Minister who has really taken the time to talk to me about St Helier's needs. And in Senator Farnham, let's not forget that he was willing to engage last autumn with the residents who discovered that their properties were in the firing line for the road improvements. And he came to meetings that we hosted in the town hall when it was possible to do so, and has continued to interact. So I do pay tribute to both senators who have a difficult job to do. But having said that, there has been, I think, a very legitimate concern on the part of the public. There is always a delayed action. We might wish that the public had been more alive to the risks we're now looking at, the potential impacts of these new roads. We might wish that had happened in November when we had the main debate on Overdale, but there is a delayed reaction. And now that people are waking up to the potential losses as a result of this improved access, I think it's only right that they are given an audience and they are listened to. And that's why in terms of the scrutiny amendment, I was supportive of that, because it would have given more time, hopefully, to reassure the public that some of their worst fears were not going to be realised. Having said that, I think the message has gone out loud and clear today that the political oversight group and everyone involved in the hospital project needs to do a lot of work to really show us what's going to be involved, not just actually in Westmount Road, but how the other junctions are going to work, how that crucial junction with Queen's Road and up to the north, how is that going to be improved to make access to the hospital from the north of the island possible, and to improve the lot of students going to and from Hope Valley School, many of them on foot. So I think there's a lot of work that has to be done. One of the unfortunate consequences of that time lag and the lack of trust that Deputy Pamplin alluded to is that, of course, people are now very concerned about anything that may be happening. Even somebody in a fluorescent coat appearing on a footpath is going to be photographed and treated with suspicion. And indeed, from the parish point of view, our workload is going to increase because, as members will be aware, a requête has been served on the parish today, and that is going to involve inevitably expense because legal advice will be required, and so on. And it's just a pity that the public wasn't brought on board earlier, because I think some of these some of this loss of engagement, loss of faith on the part of the public could have been avoided. And also, I think very genuine soul searching and stress. I've had many emails from parishioners who are actually losing sleep over the prospect of these roadworks. Not just people whose houses are in the firing line, but people living in the area, people who live up at Tower Road, people who live in the new Westmount apartments, who are really worried about the increase in traffic and the effect of years of roadworks on their quality of life. So I think the government has perhaps got off to a slow start, and that process of getting those people on board, winning back their trust, really has to start today. My own position, sir, as I'm sure members will understand, is I have to, particularly in respect of parish property, I have to be absolutely clear about my independence. I have to be able to make it quite clear, and I've spoken to my procurers and to my roads committee about this, that the parish's position, while we are reassured by the discussions we've had so far with the team, that was why my amendments are necessary, so that those informal discussions are formalised, and we know that, for example, if parking is being taken away that benefits our residents and businesses at Cheapside, it will be replaced, and that we will have a say in how that is replaced. Also, of course, with the possibility of compulsory purchase, we don't know if it'll happen, because I think everyone would like a negotiated settlement. It's perhaps worth referring members to the, at the time, quite difficult subject of the JEC substation that the states of Jersey had to find a home for. And in the end, they built the substation in our precious Westmount Park, the woodland above the inner road. And an interesting example, I think, just to refer to briefly, because that was one where the public were very concerned. Residents were really worried about the impact of that, and they were worried about the loss of the land. And we were able to negotiate on behalf of ratepayers an extremely good deal financially. It helped us pay for the World War I memorial in Parade Gardens, but also the land that we actually lost in Westmount Park was replaced threefold in extra woodland at the end of Westmount Woods, which leads up to Val Andre. So a good deal was had, and it was put to a parish assembly, and it was adopted by a very large majority a few years ago. And my hope is that the discussions we're going to have between the parish and the government will lead to a similarly good deal that can be put to parishioners, and the parishioners will endorse, not only because it gives the parish all that it needs in terms of compensation for lost parking, for lost amenity space, for lost community facilities, but also because it continues to minimise the impact on the environment and on heritage. And that's why the amendment that's been accepted today is important, I think, because it continues the pressure on the hospital group to make sure that there is no unnecessary impact on our precious environment. So, sir, my position is that I will be voting against the project, even though the amendments are in there as a safeguard, because I want my independence as I move into the phase of negotiating with the government on behalf of the parish to be absolutely clear. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Connétable. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak. Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Just to start by saying that I will vote to support this proposition. I don't feel bullied in any way into doing so, nor do I feel misled by Senator Farnham or his team in the process of me making my mind up to support it. And ultimately I do so because we need to get on with delivering a new hospital for the people of Jersey. We can't spend more and more time running round in circles. I have, in my time as a States member, tried to be accommodating in terms of the site selection process, having accepted previous decisions, having accepted the most recent decision on a site, and understanding that there will never be a perfect solution which pleases everyone. And at some point, we do have to move forward on this. And that's what I want to see the government do here. But in this debate and the context we find ourselves in, given that there is clearly very strong feelings about where we are now, I do think it's important to take the opportunity to make a few points that I think we need to bear in mind for the future. And that is the case that this whole episode of Jersey's state institutions trying to put a hospital project together has been a demonstration of how utterly broken and frankly useless our system is. The fact that it's taken us 10 years to get to this point, the fact that it's cost us tens of millions of pounds without anything to show for it as of yet, when other jurisdictions are capable of dealing with these important projects in much better and cleaner ways than ours, is a demonstration of the problems with our systems. There may be some people who will attempt to blame it on the personalities and claim that it can be blamed purely on a handful of incompetent people, and if only we'd had competent people in those roles, then things would have been different. But they're wrong, and that's not the case. It is a systemic problem that has led to this, and our political system encourages those who are active in it to try to get through their interactions with the public of Jersey by being as vague as possible. So when we end up at a crunch moment like this, where we do have to make a decision and the consequences of that decision are clearer than they would have been a year ago, people start getting cold feet, and they know that there are people out there who quite legitimately and understandably oppose perhaps the whole vision, or perhaps part of the vision, and because they're not in a position of political power, don't have any reason to compromise on any of that, or to even propose alternatives. Many of us will get scared of angering those people and potentially losing their political support in the future. And that I think is partly why we end up running round in circles on this, as this assembly and previous assemblies have done on this subject. And there is really only one way to ensure in the future, when we undertake projects like this, that we do it properly, that we get good value for money for the public who we represent, and that we get decisions made in good time, so that we can improve the lives of the people who we serve by giving them the services that they need in decent quality buildings with the facilities they need. And through political reform, we can deliver that. And that's why I think back on the opening remarks from Deputy Ash, who welcomed the introduction of a second political party into Jersey's political environment, and I welcome that as well. But had we had an election campaign in 2018, or even 2014 or 2011, where candidates had been upfront with the public about what their plans for a hospital would be, not base their entire platform on what they'd be against, but instead base it on what they'd be in favour of, then they'd have had a much better mandate to get on with delivering a hospital, and could well have done it years in advance. And I really hope we do see an evolution of our system so that we don't end up in this awful situation again. But I make my position clear, and the position of my party clear, that we have been consistent in our support for the protection of People's Park and for the expansion of open green areas in town where it's desperately needed. That position does not change. And in looking at the options for a road access up Westmount to the Overdale site, we will hold the government's feet to the fire in making sure that what they come up with does not destroy the area, does not destroy the heritage sites, does not leave the people of St Helier and the residents of the area with less open green space to enjoy. We will do that politically in the ways that we can, and we will continue to promote proper sustainable transport policies. That's one element that has creeped into this debate a little bit today, which hasn't been dealt with adequately over the last couple of years. And also, when it gets to the planning application stage, we will join in with residents if we have to support them in opposing anything that comes forward that doesn't meet the promise that has been made today by Senator Farnham in accepting the Constable of St Helier's amendment to protect that green space and to make sure that the worst fears of those who are worried about this are not realised. And if they do go back on that, they will be in for one serious fight, and it's a fight that they will lose. And I'll be honest and say that I actually think Senator Farnham recognises that, and I personally think he is sincere in his intention to uphold those aspects of this in compensating St Helier in for the things it will lose here, and in maintaining green space. So I believe he's sincere in that, but he, I hope, knows and acknowledges that he will have other people who are sincere in support for those principles, holding his feet to the fire and making sure that he does go ahead and deliver that, and will be ready for that fight through the planning stage if necessary. So, sir, I will vote in favour of this proposition. It doesn't change my position that the green space in St Helier and People's Park must be protected, and this access route must be done in such a way that it does not impact negatively on that area, and we'll keep a watching brief over it. And I hope members will understand that in projects like this, we will simply end up in this position again one day in the future, whether it's over a new school, whether it's over a different new infrastructure project, unless we get our act together and fix our political system so that we don't have this mess over and over again, letting down the public, wasting time, wasting money. And I'm very pleased that there are now 2 other members of this Assembly who've acknowledged that we need those sorts of reforms to deliver for the people who we represent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Deputy St Peter.
Thank you, sir. I hope now, sir, that we can now get behind this proposition and give it full support. What does that actually mean? It means the detailed design and planning application can commence. It will be robust and involves Soundings, a highly reputable consultancy who specialise in public consultation and stakeholder engagement. As committed by the Deputy Chief Minister, regular progress updates will be shared with members. And as a member of POG, I fully support this and will ensure that it happens. We can now get on track and continue to work in tight partnership with ROC FCC joint venture. This team are committed to working with us, and we are fortunate to have such experienced partners. They've designed, as is well known, and built 25 hospitals, including demonstrating island experience in Mallorca. We have a fantastic health team who can now have, if this proposition is approved, what Overdale was described by one particular health professional at one of our briefings as the beacon of hope, and can feel more assured that they will have a fantastic health campus to serve islanders for generations to come. Now we must get together as an Assembly, work collaboratively, work tightly to a plan, and avoid any further undue delays. The island is depending on us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Labrie.
Thank you, sir. And it's almost 2 years to the day that I was on my feet in the Assembly asking them to ditch Gloucester Street as the preferred site. But I think something more important was the debate 6 months prior to that, when I asked the Assembly to change the terms of reference for Philip Stadden. Interesting to see here Deputy of St Martin quoting him earlier in the debate, getting those terms of reference changed so that the planning inspector could acknowledge the existence of alternative sites was, I think, probably the most important step. So bringing those propositions to ditch Gloucester Street was not easy, and something of such significance does weigh very heavily on one's mind as one is doing it. You know, you're filled with doubt because you're saying to a lot of people, you're wrong and I'm right. And I couldn't go through that again with the Overdale site, which I think is the best site. I do see where both St Martin and Senator Moore are coming from. I thought Senator Moore spoke extremely well today. I couldn't support anything I felt would endanger the hospital event ending up on Overdale. And my overriding thought was looking 6 or 7 years forward, and it's a potentially fantastic site for a hospital because it'll be in mature parkland. There's plenty of it, and that's so healing and so important. And you know, it is with regret. One's read all the emails that have come through, but my overriding fear was that we were in danger of delay and possibly losing Overdale, which I think is the best site, and it's going to eventually end up with a hospital to be really proud of, and will be really healing. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputies, any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. I just want to speak very briefly because many people have given eloquent speeches that have reflected my position on this debate. I'll say at the outset, I will not be supporting it because, well, I speak personally rather than as the chair of the Future Hospital Review Panel, but I maintain the position that it is a folly that we have got to this position, and I absolutely understand the need to provide a fit for purpose hospital facility for islanders. However, that has to be fit for purpose for the future, and the affordability question sits within that. We are not, I appreciate, having another debate about, or at least having a debate that we should have perhaps had back in November about the site here. However, it does have to be said, and I would like to respond to some of the comments that have been made, particularly Deputy Labby. And I understand, and it was good of him to express the difficulty with which he found himself when he brought the rescindment motion for Gloucester Street. I would like to remind members, and I absolutely respect Deputy Labby for what he did. However, what I would like to remind members of is that during that debate, not once, not twice, but at least 3 times, different members told those who were voting that day that if they rescinded the Gloucester Street site, they would find a cheaper alternative. Well, we now see that what is being proposed is, when we take into account the inflation, contingency, etc., almost double the cost. It is a very, very dangerous path that this Assembly are walking down. It is, as members have also referred back to the comments of the planning inspector, not the best or most appropriate location from a planning perspective, and therefore it risks falling at that final hurdle. It also has not managed to gain the confidence of the public, as we have seen in the past week and month, and there is a huge lack of public engagement around this project. I noticed in the chat that Deputy Ash suggested, yes, you know, we must get onto social media and writing letters to the newspaper. No, Deputy Ash, the political oversight group have absolutely failed to engage with the public about their proposals, and they need to show the public what it is they're proposing. They must try to correct the situation that has developed, where there is a distinct sense of a lack of transparency and a deep sense of unease from some of us who are nervous of the behaviour that they see within this government. And I think that goes back to my sense that in that debate on the rescindment of Gloucester Street, members were told several times that a cheaper alternative would be delivered. That has not happened, in fact, quite the reverse. And now we find ourselves, following the pandemic, in a situation where the economy, not just of our island, but around the globe, is in a very different place. The future is less certain, and we will be saddling our children with a 40-year debt that not only they, but the grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be left to pay for. I simply cannot support this proposition. I do certainly find myself in the position I'm grateful through this debate today that there has been some commitment to reconsidering option 6, the existing road, and perhaps reining in some of the proposed spend on the access road, which is the only good thing that I can take from today, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And I'm very pleased, as people often say, I'm very pleased to follow Senator Moore because she's reflected many of my concerns that I have, particularly those over money. And in many ways, if this proposition before us was more clearly, apologies, I just stopped the echo. If this proposition before us was more clearly described in terms of the scheme that would be going forward and the costs associated with that, then I would feel a lot happier voting for it. The problem is we have a proposition before us which is going to open us up to millions and millions of pounds in expenditure. And this is for a hospital project which already, as Senator Moore just described, is already vastly more expensive than the previous hospital project. And many of those who campaigned vociferously for ending the Gloucester Street site kept telling us that that's because it can be done cheaper elsewhere. In fact, if I just look at the Hansard, and I quote here from the Deputy of St John in that 2019 debate, and I quote him just because he's one, not specifically because of him, but because he's one of the people who raised this issue. And he said, currently for under 300 beds, we are looking at £466 million. There must be something better out there. Recently, a group of local concerned individuals put the Hospital Policy Board in touch with developers in France who were able to construct a 300-bed hospital, the size we are considering, for under £100 million. Given the considerable financial disparity between the Jersey project, the Liverpool project and the French project, I suggest that a significant re-evaluation of the current development's direction should be considered, because he was concerned about the cost. He then went on to say, our duty to be frugal with taxpayers' money should drive the way forward. And my concern with the project that we have before us as a whole is that money seems to be flowing out of the project at an enormous rate. The sums being spoken about now aren't £466 million, they're £800 million. That's an enormous growth. For those people who, and there were many who were saying that it can be done cheaper, they've doubled the price of the project, and I find that very hard. And so if option 6 was actually the main option for the Westmount Road, we'll use the Westmount Road as it is, I would happily back that. But when we're talking about at least 15 million, some are saying closer to 30 million for some road alterations, I get very concerned. And then obviously on top of that, I spoke earlier about the lack of the sense of carbon neutrality, the car park that has been suggested for the hospital being 700 or 800 spaces, which is bigger than Pier Road car park, I find staggering, because that means it's being planned without a sense of the sustainable transport policy in mind. And that's something that I can't understand. We are moving into a new economic era. This pandemic is drawing a line under the way things used to be. And Jersey is going to be in a very vulnerable position. And yet we are signing ourselves up to £800 million worth of debt. We obviously have debt with regard to the pandemic itself. And we're asking future generations to pay for that without knowing if we're actually going to have an economy that is capable of servicing that debt. We don't even know if the economy will be capable of servicing the Jersey care model and the way that that intends to deliver healthcare. So with regard to this road, it is the fact that this road seems to be an incredibly expensive option that is being put before us, because whilst we have heard today people saying that, oh no, we will look at option 6, it's clear that they are driving towards option 7. And my concern is that once the states have voted and they've passed this, then all that talk about considering option 6, etc., will go out the window, and they'll just say, carry on, don't worry, send us the bill when you're finished. And so I will continue to listen, because throughout this, I have not made up my mind until I press the button on which way to vote. But I am very concerned that those who promised us a hospital for less are now delivering us a hospital for double the cost. And that in itself shows how difficult it is to have faith in the project delivering in terms of its financial envelope, as the jargon goes. I would also like to reiterate something Deputy Pamplin said, which is one of the reasons this has become such a contentious issue is because there is a lack of trust, and that is because there hasn't been enough communication with the public, and it hasn't been open enough, and there has been a sense that things are hidden or things are omitted and not told to us. And I implore the people running this project, please open up, please stop operating in a way which makes the public feel alienated from the project, because that only backfires. If anything of this magnitude delivers a sense to the public that it was railroaded through, then the public will not buy into it. And the only way to overcome that is to be more open and to be more transparent, which is why I voted with the previous scrutiny amendment, was because of the transparency. Whichever way this vote goes, well, if this vote goes in favour, certainly I ask the project team to please come out from behind the defences and open yourselves up to dialogue with all stakeholders. That means all 100,000 of us on this island, because what we're seeing at the moment is a hospital that has runaway costs and a hospital that is causing many, many more problems than the Gloucester Street project. And I remember in that debate as well that I said the reason I won't vote for the rescindment is because at the moment I know that we are going to get a hospital that will be delivered in Gloucester Street because the project had already started, and I know that it will cost £466 million. I said by voting for the rescindment we're entering the world of great uncertainty. That uncertainty is still there, and the only certainty we do have is that the cost has multiplied enormously. And that's why I have such doubts about adding extra cost by allowing developers to run away with option 7 on this road. But I will continue listening, but I have my doubts, and money is at the basis of those doubts. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Naturally, I'm quite disappointed that the amendment was lost, because I do believe we should have the additional information. However, promises are being given both publicly and privately from Senator Farnham, and I'm taking him at his word. It said that hell has no fury like a woman's scorn, but I can assure him that it will be a lot worse if he goes back on his undertakings. I'm rather old-fashioned, and I believe in my word is my bond, and I've always kept my promises, and I hope he'll keep his as well. I'm still not convinced about the parking pledge, and I'll be most interested to see how the Constable of St Helier is going to deliver this. We all know what the area is like, and how he can conjure up with the ministers the parking spaces are going to be lost, I don't know. And if they do, I'll tip my hat to them. Now, going on, I would say that this area is my district, along with Deputy Gardner, Deputy Lahagara and Deputy Ayer. And once the decision was made to build at Overdale, and once one looks at the road networks, the truth of the matter is Westmount Road is the best way of getting to and from the hospital. And for us to go anywhere else and to improve the roads would cause greater loss of housing and disruption to the schools, whether it be sending traffic down Tower Road, which would have a major impact on First Tower School, which already is seeing excessive numbers of cars in that area. And I know the Lollipop Lady very well, and I know she's had a number of near misses. And if it had gone that way, it would have been, I think, almost suicidal to do that job without proper crossings. I will, however, disagree with Senator Moore and Deputy Morell going on about the previous hospital on Gloucester Road and in the parade. It would have been a total and unmitigated disaster. And I say that because I attended the planning meetings with the inspector, and I looked at the model that was placed in the context of town, and it was massive. It looked like a nuclear power station that had been transported and placed into the middle of the town. Its height was the equivalent of the road outside Overdale Hospital as it is now. So we all look up to that hill and we'll be able to sort of see where the hospital is. Imagine a towering structure on a very small footprint in town. And I've spoken with quite a number of the clinicians in the hospital, and they're grateful that it didn't go ahead. They felt that it would have been totally incapable of meeting the needs that they required. Now, Overdale will be a good place for people who are in hospital and convalescing and being able to look out. But I do make a plea to the planners, and I'll be fighting it if they go too high, because we don't want it dominating the town. And I hope also, with my concerns about losing trees in the People's Park, they don't lose too many on the actual hospital site itself, because it is a pleasant area to walk, whether it be going up Westmount Hill or in the valley behind. I've walked it many a time with my small dog, and it's a very pleasant place to be, and I'm sure patients would convalesce there very well. In terms of the statements being made about cost, unfortunately, it is a very expensive project, and I again do wonder sometimes where they've arrived at the figures. However, if we actually listen to some members, we'll never build a hospital at all that would meet the needs of the island going forward. And in fact, I think we won't have any major capital investments, whether it be seawalls or anything else, because the argument will always be given, we can't afford it. And we have many, many problems in this island, and I'm afraid a lot of money needs to be spent to deal with them. And if we have people counting the pennies in an excessive way and not looking about a fair tax system and trying to make things more equitable, I find it absolutely amazing. I read the other day that during the pandemic worldwide, 10 billionaires earned so much money they could have paid for all the vaccinations 3 times over that the world actually requires. Now that is obscene, and all I can say is that going forward we need to have an equitable tax system in this island where we can afford to pay for our schools, our hospitals and the other infrastructure we require. And that doesn't mean fleecing the people who have got the money, it just means making it more equitable. And they can afford it. If you've got £1 billion, what's an extra million? Nothing to them, it's all relative. So anyway, rather than going on about tax policy and everything else, I will say in this particular case that despite losing the amendment and getting the full information, I will accept their word and be watching them like a hawk, and I will vote for the proposition. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak on the proposition? And I close the debate.
So I have put in the chat to speak actually. So
well, it arrived on the screen a little bit after I said I closed the debate, but Deputy Ward, I accept that you put it in before I said that, and sometimes these things do arrive somewhat slowly.
Sorry, sir.
Yes.
I have a very bad reception today. That's why I haven't got my camera on, and there's a delay, and it's making it almost impossible. So I do apologise.
No, not at all. Very well, Deputy Ward.
So I was just going to be brief, really. I just want to make a point that, and I will be supporting this, even though the amendment failed, because we do need to move forward now. I was supportive of Overdale as a site. We will certainly be watching the promises that have been made by Senator Farnham. And I also, however, want to make a very key point about the hospital site that is left when the old hospital does move. And I will be campaigning and I will be pushing to ensure that there is a significant green space in that area, and it's not just sold for property developers again, as we do too often in the centre of St Helier, to build and build and build in St Helier, often small flats that are not what is needed anyway. So that is the type of forward thinking that we need. And I will also point out the very important point that we do not have a sustainable transport policy, and you can put as many buses up there as you want, but if they are too expensive or they are more expensive than using a car and there is no incentive to use those buses, they will not be used, and you will be left with the same narrow-sighted approach to sustainable transport that we have now. So I hope that we can look for those things into the future as well, sir. Thank you very much.
Very much, Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for letting me in. Apologies, I had finger trouble this end. Nothing wrong with the transport policy, sir. That's being developed as we speak. The more people we can encourage onto public transport, the better. So the infrastructure teams are consultees to the planning applications, and my team will be ready to discharge this function at the time. This is a normal thing to do. It's a normal process to follow, and I can happily say that to date, our hospital project team have consulted with operations and transport, highways and maintenance, and public transport as representative of the Highways Authority who act on our behalf. Can I also assure the Constable of St Brelard regarding his comments that the team do have adequate resources to monitor all the planning applications and to act accordingly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak in the debate? If you do, can I suggest you press your buttons now? If no other member wishes to speak, and I close the debate and call upon Senator Farnham to respond.
Thank you, sir. And can I thank everybody who has spoken throughout the whole debate and the amendments as well, sir. We have heard some very interesting, informative and good speeches from both sides. And I can assure members that I and members of the Political Oversight Group have been listening to all views, whatever side they're coming from. I'm going to try and address the questions succinctly as possible, sir, raised by members. Deputy Massaw asked how we will engage, and I want to reassure Deputy Massaw that our communications and engagement programme partners are now fully operational and have become so. We did present to members, but that work has started. There has been some engagements. There's been two meetings, as I understand it, but the agenda for that can really start to ramp up now. So as the detailed design work starts, they're also working on with residents of the Lekeneve area in relation to the decant of the Overdale facility. So I'd like to provide Deputy Massaw and members with that reassurance. The Constable of St Brelard, sir, has, and he does say I'm holding a gun. That's not the intention, sir. Members who know me and work with me know I don't operate like that, and I'm sorry if he feels like that, sir. That's not the intention at all, but there is nothing wrong with disagreeing. And as members will also know, we can disagree and we debate. That's the role of politics and politicians. So I will continue to try to work with the Constable and the scrutiny panel so as closely as we possibly can, despite our differences from time to time, which can be healthy, sir. The Director General of the IHE team, so is part of our political oversight group, so there is a connection there. In relation to, we have a PCFA, which is a pre-construction services agreement with the delivery partner, sir. That's in place. That work takes us all the way through the planning process, literally till we get spades in the ground. And that contract can be terminated at short notice, sir. I mean, the constable was, I think, wanting that clarified. Deputy Luce, I know the Deputy St Martin's opinions on this. We all, I mean, I think we have short memories when we talk about, when we look back at Gloucester Street. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but I just, you know, we have to start looking forward now. So Deputy Grouville thanked Islanders, and I would like to join her in that, as other members have, because we've had a significant amount of emails over the weekend, and again, they have been containing different views. So right from being completely opposed to the hospital at Overtale to being very supportive of the project and wanting us to get on. The vast majority, sir, have been with concern about the road. And despite being frustrated because there's a lot of supposition and speculation and I think unnecessary concern, which I find frustrating for them, sir. We have read them all and learned from them, and we realise we have work to do now to start reassuring the people that take their good time up to write to us. And again, that was the theme from the Constable of St Juan. He implored us to improve our communication. But actually, one of the important things, I hope, if members approve this proposition now, is that means we can get back on, we can really get on in earnest now, sir, with producing the information that's so desperately required. Action will speak louder than words, sir. And I actually am looking forward to sharing that information, especially on the design and the potential for improvements around the road and environment as it comes forward, sir, because I think it's going to be very, very good. And of course, I would remind members and islanders that we do have an exceptionally informative website, sir, ourhospital.je, and would advise the public to engage with that as much as possible. A similar theme from Deputy Truscott, which we note, sir, and again he expresses thanks for Ireland. Deputy Pamplin is always good at communication. I'm not sure if his scrutiny commitments would prevent him, sir, but he'd be jolly good communications member of our political oversight group, but perhaps something he can advise us on anyway, and I undertake to continue to work closely with the deputy. So as I say to him as well, let us get the details together, which we're going to start doing now in earnest, and hopefully the deputy will see that coming together. And Constable St Helier, and I thank him for his kind words. I have always worked, have an exceptionally good working relationship with the constable and the parish of St Helier, and I commit to continue to working closely with him and the parish, sir. And we have talked about some exciting opportunities that could come out of this, where we sat down and not just talked about the possibilities for reinvigorating the area with additional parkland and community space, but we've also looked at other parts of the property estates and looked at opportunities there, and I commit to continue to work closely with the parish. And we have tried so hard to bring the public on board, and many have been scared, sir, by some of the speculation, but we have to address that. And the way to stop speculation is to present proper, accurate information and detail, sir. And again, I reiterate, we are going to do that. I thank Senator Mesick for his comments, and in fairness to the Senator, sir, he has always been consistent with his view. When he was on a colleague on the Council of Ministers and this was discussed, he was always consistent in wanting the hospital project to just get on with it. You know, obviously within the realms of the good, I think the good process that we followed, and we have. So I remember in 2019 when we went out to public consultation, and the site selection consultation was independently run, sir, and being criticised then because I remember the groans across the island when we said we're going to go out to public consultation again. Why can't we just build it? Was the echo from around the island. But of course, here is right. Here we are 10 years on, which is why we must succeed now. And I think we've got the best chance of success now. members have demonstrated their resolve today with supporting this progress. It was a very hard decision to make for some members. I know that and appreciate that because of the level of interaction we've had with some islanders, especially those most opposed to it. But we have the best chance, I think, now of success. We have a fantastic team of professionals working with us, experts in their respective fields. So I think we must build upon that. Deputy Hewlin, I thank for his support. He's been absolutely invaluable on the Political Oversight Group, as have all of the members of the Political Oversight Group. I can't count how many hours we've been meeting in the last week alone, but I thank them all for their fortitude and for their careful consideration of every aspect of the project. So I'm sure I speak for all of them when I say we have listened very carefully to what members are demanding. So I say demanding of us to, rebuild the momentum in the projects whilst improving communication and rebuilding confidence. Deputy Russell Labby, of course, talked about Gloucester Street, and I remember the debate on his proposition very well. So he also quite rightly reminded members of the healing sort of location of Overdale. I said we have a peaceful location set in an elevated position with fantastic views, sir, and I think that's far better than looking at the side of a multi-storey car park or across the road into somebody's flat when you're recuperating. Senator Moore also wanted to talk about Gloucester Street again, and Gloucester Street was a non-starter if we remember the trials and tribulations we had around that. And Senator Moore was in the thick of that, sir, as she was a member of the Council of Ministers, as was I. So I remember that clearly. And, it's really unfair to compare the costs of the two facilities because they are completely different facilities. We have since found out from our clinicians and all the work that has been done that actually, if we had gone ahead with the Gloucester Street project, it was too small and we would have been running out of space by 2035. That is, those are the figures that have come back. So what and of course, Gloucester Street wasn't a complete one-site solution. The mental health facility wasn't going to be on site, sir. So it's not comparing like for like. The Overdale campus is going to be some 30% bigger. I think that the estate, and importantly, it puts everything in one place, and vitally, sir, mental health facility. I know that's very close to some members, and I'm just recalling the very good speech of Deputy Poynton and the amendment debate. So I know Deputy Pamplin is also will be pleased, and Senator Pallett be pleased to hear that. So of course, when you look at a site that's 30% bigger, and of course having everything on one site will benefit the running costs there because it's much logistically it's more cost effective to do that. And the price has gone up, sir, because we have dithered. The states have allowed us to fail time and time again. Members must not be ashamed to admit that. I think only by admitting our faults can we rectify the future. And if we wait or delay this anymore, there's only one thing that's going to happen to the price, and it's going to go up. The bracket is 550 to 800 million. So the project will be delivered within that bracket. And Senator Moore also talked about the debt we're going to be burdening our future generations with. So, well, debt, this isn't debt, sir, this is an investment in the future. The acquisition and the land assembly programme will consolidate land where we will build an extremely valuable asset, not just in terms of bricks and mortar and value of the land it sits on, but of course an investment in the health and well-being in a hospital fit for the 21st century, for the future generations of islanders. I think Deputy Morell sort of touched on the same point and was questioning the costs. I hope what I've just said he'll accept that we are not building a like-for-like facility. It's completely different. And of course, when you add the extras, inflation and the delay in time, so that is why the cost has gone up. And again, we talk about the cost, so it is an investment. I mean, and I think about the recent comments of the our frontline health staff and clinicians who have been working on the front line throughout the pandemic. You know, are they worth the investment? I think we all know the answer to that. I think it was Deputy Morel that brought up the French contractors. So we did engage with the French contractors, but they turned out to be architects rather than contractors, and the £90 million sort of ballpark figure turned out to be a private selected treatment facility and not a general hospital at all, sir. So it's not, you know, so well, I have that. That's the explanation for that. And of course, our road estimate is currently 15.1 million, not 40 million pounds, but we are absolutely and unequivocally reassuring members that we will look very closely at option 6. So, and as I've said before, we could even find a blend of option 6 or option 7, whatever we come up with. So the designs, detailed designs and drawings will be presented as soon as possible. So, and we will look for the best solution. Deputy Ward, of course, mentioned the sustainable transport policy, and I hope we've got an opportunity here to be an exemplar with how we access the hospital. And yes, I'm sorry if I've gone off the succinct message, but I'm trying to cover everything. So that was the last comment I wanted to make, so that the Deputy Kevin Lewis, I think, answered that question. So we get to the end of the debate now, sir, and we have listened and we have heard, we understand we have to build confidence in the project. We have to reassure the public that we're going to deliver the very, very best access options. In an email to members last week, Senator Moore questioned the government's motives in the project. And I would just like to say, so that our motives are not questionable here. Our motive is in fact quite simple, but it is a strong motive, sir. And that motive is simply to build and deliver a fully functioning hospital by the end of 2026. So our motive is nothing more than that, sir, and certainly nothing less, sir. And to that end, I commend the proposition to the Assembly and ask for the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. I ask the Greffier to put a voting link into the chat. I open the voting and ask members to vote in the normal way. If members are having difficulty with the link, could they please type into the chat? To say the voting is open. Give it a minute or two more, moment or two more. If we wait another 10 minutes, what's the time? Okay. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the Greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted, 33 votes pour, 11 votes contre in the link, with an additional vote pour in the chat. 34, 11.
Can we
Very well.
have the 11, please, sir? Sorry.
All right. 11.
Those voting contre in the link, Deputy Lehegara, the Connétable of St Helier, Deputy Pamplin, Senator Moore, Deputy of St Martin, the Connétable of St Brelard, the Connétable of Grouville, Deputy Morrell, Deputy Pershard, Deputy Gardner and Senator Pallett.
Very well. That brings the public business to an end for this meeting, and we accordingly stand adjourned until Tuesday the 9th of February.